Chapter 1580. You. Charlotte's sapphire blue eyes looked at Wu Yan with a complicated expression. Reading the latest novel, you exposed the information of the magic that can be used by the magic circuit of your automaton to me just like that? Aren't you afraid that I'll formulate a strategy to counter this? Devise a strategy to counter the magic that my automaton can perform? Wu Yan didn't know what she was talking about. Why would I need to counter the magic that my automaton can perform? Isn't that obvious? Charlotte said matter-of-factly. Even though I didn't see your full strength and Magnus didn't use his full strength just now, you still managed to suppress the #1 student in the academy. It shouldn't be difficult for you to qualify for the night gathering, right? By then, we will be enemies. Charlotte stared at Wu Yan. Isn't it dangerous for you to expose the intelligence of your automaton magic circuit to me? Indeed. Exposing the magic circuit of an automaton before a battle is an extremely irrational behavior. Because an automaton can only perform one magic circuit. Therefore, once the magic circuit of an automaton is exposed, the enemy will be able to counter this magic and come up with a strategy to counter it. It will be very disadvantageous in a battle. Of course, the premise is that there will be a battle. Wu Yan said while Charlotte was still in a daze. Who told you I'm going to the night gathering? You're not going to the night gathering? Charlotte cried out involuntarily. In the Walpurgis Wangli Machine Learning Academy, the Walpurgis evening party was held once every 4 years. It was a banquet where the best puppeteers could be selected. The puppeteer who won the night gathering and became the Demon King would be able to dissociate himself from the ethics of a magician. He would also be able to become a popular figure who would receive preferential treatment from all parties. The person who became the Demon King would be able to do whatever he wanted. He could obtain everything that others could only dream of. Wealth, fame, knowledge, power. There wasn't a single person who wasn't moved. Under such circumstances, a puppet user who had the ability to fight for the throne of the Demon King said that he didn't want to join the night gathering. The first thought that emerged in Charlotte's mind was disbelief. You don't want to join the night party? Charlotte stared at Wu Yan as if she wanted to see something from his expression. He sneered. You can get everything by becoming the Devil King. Are you trying to say that you're a saint who doesn't have any requirements for wealth, fame, knowledge, or power? No. Wu Yan answered directly. I also have a request. I also hope to obtain power that no one else can match. That's why I came to the Walpurgis King Tactical Academy. Then why did you say that you didn't want to attend the night party? Charlotte frowned. Become the Devil King. Won't you be able to obtain the power you want then? In this world, there were many powerful magic, forbidden arts, and secret arts that were passed down from ancient times. Some of these magic, forbidden arts, and secret arts had harsh conditions to use, some were too bloody, some were too powerful and could easily cause great harm. Thus, all of them were listed as forbidden arts that couldn't be studied and were sealed away. If a puppet user or even a magician broke the taboo and studied these forbidden arts, they would be hunted down by the Magician Association and sent to the execution stage in the end. Only those who obtained the title of Devil King could touch these taboo arts as they wished and study these unimaginable forbidden arts to obtain power that others coveted. Since Wu Yan came to the Walpurgis King Tactical Academy to obtain great power, it was impossible that he didn't want to become the Devil King and study forbidden arts, right? Wu Yan saw through Charlotte's inner thoughts, that's why he snorted in disdain. To be honest, I don't think the forbidden arts of this world can give a person great power. Huh? Charlotte was stunned. No matter how powerful the techniques you create are, a magician is still a magician. Wu Yan left Charlotte behind and continued walking forward. If they don't know how to strengthen themselves instead of strengthening their arts, they will never become a god that controls everything. God. Charlotte's delicate body trembled as a wave of emotions surged in her heart. Does this man want to become a god? As soon as this thought arose, it was immediately cut off by Charlotte. It wasn't that she thought it was wishful thinking, but she felt that if Wu Yan's goal was to become a god, it would be too frightening. Of course, Wu Yan didn't lie. Didn't he do the demigod path, mission and work hard until now to become a peak demigod? After becoming a peak demigod, Wu Yan would be able to touch the barrier of the divine rank. He would become a god. Of course, the reason he isn't interested in the forbidden arts of this world is because Wu Yan has an innumerable amount of techniques from the 103,000 demon path tomes. No matter how powerful the forbidden arts were, they wouldn't be as powerful as the truly heaven-defying arts in the 103,000 books that gathered the world's knowledge of arts since ancient times. After all, among the techniques in the 103,000 Book of Demon, there was a technique that could truly kill a god. It's a pity that Wu Yan's current strength is far from enough to use it. Charlotte shook her head and she chased after Wu Yan while yelling at him. You said that you won't join the night party. Then, do you dare to tell me all the magic circuits of your automaton? If you want to know, I don't mind telling you. Wu Yan shrugged without batting an eyelid. Natsuki's magic circuit is space manipulation, which allows her to freely manipulate space. Ikaros's magic circuit is wave barrier. Astria's magic circuit is particle sword, it's the same as the lightsaber just now. She can use light particles to form a sword. She can enlarge or shrink it at will. Nagisa's magic circuit is freezing fog. She can control cold air and ice. Kanon's magic circuit is healing boost. No matter how severe the injury is, as long as the victim doesn't die, they will be healed in a short period of time. Wu Yan looked at Charlotte with a smile that didn't look like a smile on his face. Are you happy now? Why, you're really telling me? Charlotte was dumbfounded. Now, I can come up with a strategy to deal with you. If you join the night party, you will be at a disadvantage. I told you I don't want to join the night party. Wu Yan sighed. I came to this academy for another reason. It's not to join the night party. Don't worry. All right then. Charlotte let out a long sigh and calmed down the waves in her heart. That's fine too, I don't want to have another strong enemy, that's why you should think about how to deal with Magnus. Wu Yan pursed his lips. You won't be able to become the Demon King if you don't defeat him, Of course I know. Charlotte immediately became unhappy. I don't have a way to deal with his one-man army, but I will definitely win, no. We must win. Charlotte clenched her fists. Then, she seemed to have thought of something and started clapping. Oh right. Why don't you practice with me? Huh? This time, it was Wu Yan's turn to be stunned. You're not joining the night party anyway, right? Charlotte's eyes lit up. Magnus has his one-man army, and your automaton isn't any weaker than him. Plus, your magic circuits work well together. If you practice with me, I might be able to find a way to defeat Magnus. What Charlotte said was right. Astria specializes in offense and can be used as a strong attacker. Ikaros's magic circuit is for defense. She can focus on defense. Natsuki can manipulate space as she pleases. She's perfect for ambushes and rescues. Nagisa's magic is for controlling air and ice. She can attack from a distance and control the battlefield. On the other hand, Kanon had excellent healing abilities. She could heal all kinds of injuries in a short period of time. Such a team that took care of all aspects was simply too ideal. It was even more like an army than Magnus' one-man force. If they could defeat such an ideal team, Charlotte might really be able to find a way to defeat Magnus. Time is of the essence. Charlotte grabbed Wu Yan's hand and rushed out. Let's go practice. Wait. Wu Yan didn't have time to say anything before Charlotte, who has transformed into a biker gang, pulled him into the air. His feet left the ground and he rushed out with Charlotte dragging him along. Master. Ikaros stared blankly at the man and woman leaving a trail of smoke behind them. Wait. Astria, Nagisa, and Kanon snapped out of their daze and chased after him. Only Natsuki and Sigmund remained where they were, speechless for a long time. Chapter 1581. This was a forest located at the back of the academy. The morning sun shone down from the sky, illuminating the leaves of every tree in this dense forest with the most vibrant green. Among them, droplets of dew flickered with sparkling and translucent arcs, sliding down slightly. Everything seemed to be full of vitality. In the midst of such a vibrant forest, there was a vast clearing. Because this open space was located deep in the forest, there weren't many students who could find it. However, everyone who found it would secretly treat it as their secret place. Some would use it for trysts. Some would use it for their secret training. At this moment, in this empty space, there was a man with 5 girls who were cute, beautiful, playful, quiet, and all sorts of attractive temperaments. He was currently facing a girl who had a small dragon the size of a cat on her wrist. They were separated by a certain distance from each other, standing face to face. This strange combination of 1 man, 6 women, and 1 dragon wasn't planning on using this open space to have a beautiful tryst. Instead, they were planning to break the silence of this forest in the morning. Looking at the lush trees around him, Wuyan smacked his lips. He looked at Charlotte, who was standing in front of him with a serious expression, and helplessly opened his mouth. "I'll talk. Are we really going to fight? Are you regretting it?" Charlotte said with some displeasure. "It's not like you're going to participate in the night meeting, right?" "I don't plan on participating in the night meeting, but why do I have to practice with you if I don't?" Wuyan rubbed his forehead and pretended to have a headache. "And in a place like this, aren't you afraid that this place will be affected and razed to the ground?" "What can I do? I only know of this secret place that not many people know about." Charlotte's face was filled with reluctance. "Practice before a night meeting, and it's to defeat Magnus. Of course it has to be done in secret." "But isn't class about to start?" Wuyan had just finished speaking when a bell rang in the academy, causing his mouth to twitch. "You're skipping class just like that? Just a day?" "No. Half a day. It doesn't matter, right?" Charlotte wasn't used to skipping classes, but she still insisted stubbornly. "Perhaps skipping today's class will allow me to defeat Magnus?" "Skipping class can defeat the number 1 student in the history of the academy. There won't be any more students in the entire academy's lecture halls. You're so long-winded and annoying." Charlotte's expression became fierce. "Do it when it's time. Don't be so sentimental. You're not like a man at all." Hearing these ambiguous words, Wuyan raised his eyebrows. "Since you've put it this way, then don't blame me for being impolite." "You're welcome. Who do you think I am?" Charlotte puffed up her slightly flat chest. A confident smile appeared on his face. "I'm one of the top 13 participants of the night party, Charlotte, who logged in with the code name Tyrant Rex, and I'm one of the 13 people who is ranked the highest among the night party participants." Birao. Hearing this, Wuyan couldn't help but look down at Charlotte's hands. Her fair skin was faintly visible, and there was a pair of fingerless gloves on her hands. The gloves were made of pitch black silk. Although it looked dull, the style revealed a sense of superiority. On the edge of the pitch black glove that covered the wrist, there were a few letters embroidered with golden thread. Tyrant Rex. Tyrant Rex. Only the top 100 students in the academy, who had the qualifications to participate in the night party, had the special gloves. The golden words embroidered on the gloves were the code names that only the 100 participants of the night gathering could possess. It was also the nickname of those who were famous in the academy. Charlotte was one of the top 100 people. Moreover, she was one of the top 13 of the top 100 people. Charlotte's ranking in the academy was 6th. In other words, even if there was a slight deviation from her ranking, Charlotte's strength could still be ranked in the top 10 of the entire Walpurgis Royal Mechanical Academy. It was because of this that the other students were so afraid of Charlotte. It was also because of this that Charlotte dared to say that she had a slight chance of winning against 1 or 2 of Magnus' one-man army. Even if it was 3, she could still barely deal with it. How strong was Magnus' true strength? This question, perhaps no one in the entire academy knew. Thus, Charlotte's statement was more or less one-sided and not convincing. However, Charlotte had spent quite a bit of time in the Walpurgis Royal Tactical Academy, so she definitely had a certain level of understanding of Magnus. Therefore, even if this statement was too one-sided, it was enough to prove that Charlotte had a certain level of strength. I won't go easy on you. Charlotte withdrew all her expression and a cold aura emitted from her body. Anyway, you have an automaton that specializes in healing. As long as you don't destroy Eve's heart, it'll be fine. Sensing the aura coming from Charlotte, everyone knew that she was serious. Master. Ikaros and Astria reacted to Charlotte's hostility by looking at Wu Yan with an illusory frame in their eyes. Sensei. Kanon and Nagisa seemed nervous about the upcoming battle. However, they still used their determined gazes to show that they will follow Wu Yan's decision. Natsuki didn't say anything. For someone like her who has been through countless battles, there was no need for her to express anything. She looked at the man in front of her with a calm expression. This time, the 5 girls all acted as if they were automatons, seeking to control their puppeteer's choice. I have no choice. Wu Yan smiled and looked at Charlotte. Then come at me. Go all out. Immediately, Charlotte raised her hand. Sigmund. Understood. In an instant, Sigmund flew onto Charlotte's raised hand, and his cat-sized body was instantly shrouded in black mist. That mist was the magic power rising from Charlotte's body. Wrapped in the black mist, Sigmund's body began to slowly expand. When the mist dissipated, a steel-colored dragon appeared before everyone's eyes. In an instant, Sigmund grew from the size of a kitten to a 3-meter-tall dragon with a length of at least 8 meters. The giant dragon seemed to have become a lot stronger. Its butterfly-like wings had become more developed. Its dragon eyes were decorated with a crimson light, and its dragon horns had become ferocious. It was as if it had suddenly grown from a young dragon. Roar! Sigmund roared, causing the air to tremble. A strong gust of wind swept out in all directions along with Sigmund's enormous body, causing the surrounding trees to rustle and leaves to dance in the air. Even the ground where Sigmund stood cracked inch by inch. Judging from the automaton's posture alone, Charlotte had clearly told everyone the extent of her strength. Sigmund, level 64, 7th stage. Looking at Sigmund roaring like a real dragon, Wu Yan had a pensive look in his eyes. As one of the top 13 of the academy, Sigmund's rank was at the 7th step. In that case, the rest of the 13 people, meet NDS, should also be around the same level. And a puppeteer usually only had one automaton. In other words, with 5 peak 7th stage automatons, if Wu Yan were to display the true strength of the girls, it wouldn't be hard for him to stand at the top of the academy. At the very least, he would be able to stand on the same level as Magnus, who also had multiple powerful automatons. Thanks to Charlotte, Wu Yan finally knew where he stood in this academy. Rasterkane, then, the scene before him was filled with light. Chapter 1582. Grating Cannon. Wu Yan's group could clearly feel a surge of magical energy flowing from Charlotte into Sigmund's body. Roar. Then, on Sigmund's long neck, the lines that looked like the gaps between the scales flashed with a blue light as if they were gathering something. From the bottom to the top, the light gradually dimmed. Finally, on Sigmund's wide-open dragon mouth, it gathered into a dazzling ball of light. Well then. Wu Yan raised his hand and he pointed his palm at Ikaros. It's time for us to test out the puppet user's fighting style. Wu Yan's magical energy surged and flowed into his palm. The energy turned into a dazzling golden halo. At the same time, Ikaros felt a vigorous magical energy bursting out from the depths of her body, filling her whole body. Her combat skills that she couldn't even use before suddenly became active. Ikaros abruptly raised her head. Her indigo pupils turned into a crimson red, and an illusory frame like a scope appeared in front of her eyes. Her pink hair fluttered up and a pure white halo appeared above her head. A pair of pink wings unfurled from her back without any warning. Pink feathers fluttered in the air. As if it was calculated, a ray of sunlight shone down from the sky. It hit Icarus's body. Ikaros closed her eyes and slowly floated up with the help of her pink wings. Pink feathers fluttered around her. Simply. Just like an angel descending from the heavens. Beautiful to the extreme. So beautiful. Charlotte couldn't help but stare blankly at the angelic girl. She shook her head and tried to focus. Sigmund. Roar. Sigmund squeezed out a ferocious roar from his throat. The ball of light that converged on his dragon mouth suddenly exploded, turning into a dazzling beam of light that pierced through space, and shot out with a sonic boom. Ikaros. Looking at the incoming beam, Wuyan raised his hand towards Ikaros. The dazzling magic circle rippled even more frequently. Ikaros's crimson, square-rimmed eyes flashed and her lips parted. Aegis, absolute defense circle, buzz, the surrounding space suddenly trembled. A barrier made of tiny crystals suddenly rippled out from Ikaros' body. It expanded and enveloped Wuyan and the girls in a spherical barrier. It's useless. Seeing the ripples in the protective barrier, Charlotte revealed a ruthless smile. Sigmund. Pierce through it. Roar. Amidst Sigmund's roar, the light beam that pierced through the air and landed on the Aegis, absolute defense circle, as if it evaporated the atmosphere. However, the collision between the light beam and the Aegis did not produce any unusual sound. Under everyone's gaze, the beam of light directly melted the Aegis, absolute defense circle, melting a hole in it. Seeing this, Natsuki, Astria, Kanon, and Nagisa were all surprised by this development. The illusory square frame in Ikaros' eyes also shrunk. Then, circles of Aegis rippled and overlapped with the Aegis that was about to be melted completely. In an instant, the entire Aegis seemed to have thickened. The crystal-clear luster on it skyrocketed. The beam that landed on the Aegis, absolute defense circle, was melting the crystal-like barrier bit by bit. Instantly, the speed of melting slowed down as if a pile driver had hit a solid rock plate. It gradually disappeared. Wah! Charlotte, who was riding on Sigmund's dragon head, gasped. He blocked it? Wuyan wasn't surprised to see Charlotte's shocked expression. Because Sigmund's body was equipped with a magic circuit known as the Demon Sword. It was a magic that was related to the truth of the universe. It was a magic that could create elements of annihilation in one's body and fire them out. The essence of the demonic sword was to reverse the state of existence of matter, switching the state of matter from existence to nothingness. It was a destructive magic spell that could destroy everything. And now, this unstoppable magic was stopped by Ikaros' Aegis. It's not that the magic was stopped. At this moment, Natsuki seemed to have seen through Charlotte's thoughts and abruptly said, "Don't worry. It's more like it was exhausted." That's right. Even if it was a magic spell that could destroy all matter and should be impossible to resist, it still required the support of Charlotte's magic to activate the magic circuit and activate it. Ikaros' Aegis was in a stalemate with Sigmund's attack. Before the Aegis was melted, Sigmund's attack would exhaust its mana and disappear. Then how about this? Charlotte seemed to have noticed this as well. Her eyes flashed and her body erupted with magic like steam. Radiant flash, or flare, Sigmund opened his mouth, and the gaps between the scales on his neck and chest flashed with blue light again. The blue light gathered on Sigmund's mouth, and under Sigmund's roar, the blue light turned into rays of light. Blinding rays of light shot out like spears of light. They rained down from the sky like a torrential downpour towards Wuyan and company. Too bad this time, it was Ikaros who took the initiative to attack. Ikaros' crimson eyes flashed with data. With a wave of her hand, the Aegis, absolute defense circle, protecting everyone, shook and expanded in size. Bam! The Aegis, which suddenly expanded, collided with the incoming light rain. In the instant of the collision, the Aegis expanded again and exploded. Dong! The storm-like light spears were instantly affected by the explosion of the Aegis, and all of them exploded, turning into balls of fire that filled the entire area. Charlotte's expression changed. He actually detonated the protective shield and engulfed all of Sigmund's attacks in the explosion, erasing them all? Whoosh! Just as Charlotte's expression changed, the sound of something breaking through the air reverberated. Amidst the sonic boom, a chain that was emitting a faint purple glow pierced through the air towards Charlot and Sigmund. Before the two of them could react, the chain had already reached Sigmund's massive body. Ding ding ding, a light clashing sound echoed. The lock of discipline circled around Sigmund's body and tightened, binding Sigmund. Whoosh, then, there was another air-piercing sound. A stream of light flashed, dragging a long tail of light like a meteor as it flashed through the space. Shortly after, he appeared on top of Sigmund's dragon head, right in front of Charlotte. Charlotte only felt a blur in front of her eyes, and a fragrance rushed into her nose. When she regained her vision, Charlotte was stunned. That's because in front of her, a young girl is floating in the air. Her dark red pupils rippled with an illusory square frame, and a pure white halo floated above her head. Behind the young lady was a pair of pure white wings. White feathers drifted down from her body, imprinting themselves into Charlot's eyes. Under the protection of the white feathers, the angelic young girl held a vibrating lightsaber and placed it gently on Charlotte's neck. Charlotte's eyes widened to the limit. Astrea. Astrea, of course, the one who led the battle to victory is Astrea. Humph. Astrea held the lightsaber in her hand, the illusory frame in her dark red eyes disappeared. Her stern expression was replaced by a smug one. Victory has been decided. Chapter 1583. Ha, 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 on the grass at the edge of the messy clearing, Charlotte hugged Sigmund, who had transformed back to the size of a cat. She collapsed on the grass without a care for her image as she panted heavily. My mana is depleted, of course it's going to run out. Wu Yan sat down as well, his tone was filled with anger. In the end, I've fought with you more than 10 times today, and your magic power still hasn't been exhausted. I should really suspect that you're just like your login code name, a tyrannosaurus that only knows how to stare at its prey. But I haven't won even once. Charlotte grumbled with a face full of indignation. And every time, you're able to take it down in an instant. Are you a monster or not? You think I'm a monster just because I didn't lose to you? Wu Yan pursed his lips in disdain. In my opinion, you're more like a ferocious monster than someone who refuses to admit defeat. Every time you lose, you'll pester me for another round. I'm Charlotte from Count Bilo's family. Charlotte snorted coldly and turned her head away. It's impossible for me to keep losing to the same person. Is that so? Wu Yan retorted. But you haven't won even once. I will win sooner or later. Charlotte glared at Wu Yan. She turned to Natsuki, who was enjoying her afternoon tea under the shade of a tree. Kanon was brewing tea beside Natsuki. Astrea, Nagisa, and Ikaros were chatting happily. Her shoulders drooped in dejection. The result. You've only been using Natsuki, Ikaros, and Astrea. Kanon and Nagisa haven't even made a move yet and I'm already no match for you. Kanon doesn't have any combat ability. Wu Yan shrugged. As for Nagisa, her situation is a little special. If she wants to fight, she has to transform into another form. Today is just a practice session, there's no need to summon Agarola. Agarola? Nagisa's other personality is called Agrora when she enters combat mode. Her other personality is called Agrora. Wu Yan didn't try to hide anything from Charlotte. He explained it to her in a straightforward manner. Nagisa can use her own power, but she has never participated in a battle before. Therefore, Nagisa can use her own power. In battle, Agurola will be able to bring out her true strength. Automatons have dual personalities? Charlotte couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. Your automatons are all rare breeds, rare species. It was Wu Yan's turn to be confused. Ikaros has a defense that even Sigmund's demon sword couldn't penetrate. Astrea is an expert in swordsmanship and her speed is astounding. Natsuki's magic is unpredictable and hard to defend against. They are all powerful existences on their own. Charlotte said softly as she looked at the group of girls who were having a good time under the shade of the tree. Up until now, I've never failed when using a magic sword, because Sigmund's body is heavy and bulky. I've always been suppressed by others using speed, but none of them were so fast that I couldn't react in time. However, those two angels managed to do it. The most shocking one is Natsuki. Charlotte stared at Natsuki. Magic related to space is the highest level of magic. Even if it is turned into a magic circuit and installed in an automaton, the burden of activating it is huge. If the user isn't strong enough, they won't be able to activate the magic circuit. And this is when the magic is dissected. For example, there are spatial transference, spatial distortion, spatial fissure, and so on. Charlotte looked at Natsuki in a different light. But Natsuki seems to be able to use all the magic related to space. Under such circumstances, the magic circuit in her body is like a spider web that is dissected one by one. Activating the magic circuit is like reassembling them one by one and activating them one by one. Charlotte turned around. She looked at Wu Yan with a serious expression. To be able to control such a complicated automaton so easily, your technique and magic power are amazing. You are stronger than I expected. Wu Yan bitterly laughed inside when he heard that. That's true. However, Natsuki doesn't have a magic circuit in her body and the magic isn't controlled by him. It is all Natsuki's doing. Even if Charlotte is impressed by Natsuki's ability to use space magic, she should be impressed by Natsuki, not Wu Yan. Wu Yan only provided her with magic power. Other than that, he didn't do anything else. But, even if Wu Yan told her that, she probably wouldn't believe him, right? After all, although the magic circuit could usually be controlled by the automaton itself, and the puppeteer was only responsible for providing mana and activating it, the truly complex and difficult magic could only be controlled by the puppeteer itself in order for it to be effective. For example, if Sigmund's magic sword was controlled by the magic circuit and used by himself, it could shoot out tens or hundreds of reflares at once. However, if Charlotte is the one controlling it, then reflare would rain down on her just like when she fought with Wu Yan. She can't even count how many reflare there. It's not that the automaton has weaker control over the magic circuit than the user. On the contrary, the automaton is more familiar with the magic circuit than the puppeteer. However, if the user could convert mana into a form that was more acceptable to the automaton and control the magic circuit, the effect of the magic would be even better. This is a clever magic trick. A magic trick performed by both the puppeteer and the automaton. Without either side, the magic trick's power will be greatly reduced. That's why Charlotte doesn't believe that Natsuki, who can use spatial magic as she pleases, didn't have Wu Yan controlling it. I thought you were able to suppress Magnus in the morning because he wasn't serious and didn't get lucky. Charlotte said in a relaxed tone. Now I know, it's all because of your own strength. No, it's all because of Astria and Natsuki. Wu Yan shook his head and sighed after being praised by Charlotte. If he was the one who did it, the praise would be reasonable. However, it was the girls who did it. Wu Yan only provided the magic power. Taking all the praise that should have belonged to the girls, Wu Yan felt a bit uncomfortable. But, I'm sure of it. While Wu Yan was feeling conflicted, Charlotte turned around and stared at Wu Yan like a predator staring at its prey. If I can defeat you with all 5 automatons, I will definitely be able to defeat Magnus and become the Demon King. Charlotte stood up and pointed at the stunned Wu Yan. So, from today onwards, you will be my training partner. Huh? Wu Yan flinched when he heard Charlotte say that as if it was a matter of fact. Then it's decided. Charlotte didn't give Wu Yan a chance to change his mind. She carried Sigmund and ran out of the forest. Tomorrow at the same time, remember to come and practice with me. After saying that, Charlotte went into the forest and disappeared. Wu Yan stared blankly at the direction Charlotte left in and didn't react for a long time. Not far away, under the shade of a tree, Natsuki, who is holding a teacup, glanced at Wu Yan, who is standing there dumbfounded. She humphed. Looks like I've been pestered by a rather troublesome little girl, sensei. Kanon heard Natsuki's words and she started to worry. He should be fine. I don't know, who knows? Natsuki closed her eyes and picked up her teacup. She continued to leisurely enjoy her black tea. Perhaps this is a good thing for him, but I can't say for sure. Chapter 1584. Dang, 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 dang. In the evening, at dusk, the solemn sound of a bell reverberated from the tallest clock tower in the entire Walpurgis Royal Tactical Academy, turning into an invisible sound wave that gradually spread out. Amidst the melodious chimes of the bell, Wu Yan is walking alone in a corridor of the central lecture hall of Walpurgis Wangliji Academy. Just now, Wu Yan received a notice that the academic test for new students is about to begin. The venue for the examination was the central lecture hall of the Walpurgis Royal Mechanical Academy. Only after participating in the test will the academy give Wu Yan a uniform and arrange a dorm room for him. That's why even though Wu Yan didn't care about his ranking in Walpurgis Academy and didn't want to participate in the night party, he still had to come here as a formality. It's said that new students who don't participate in the test will have their enrollment revoked. It was clearly just a test, and if they didn't participate, they would even lose their status as a student. With such harsh rules, only the Walpurgis Royal School of Engineering could stand up to such standards. Even though he was unwilling, Wu Yan had no choice but to come. Natsuki, Ikaros, Astria, Nagisa, and Canon stayed in their dorm room to pack up the things they bought after coming to the academy. After all, after the test, Wu Yan will be assigned to a dorm room and move out of there. The students have already finished their classes. They might even have finished their dinner by now. There's not a single person in the dimly lit hallway. Wu Yan could clearly hear the sound of their footsteps. It could also be heard clearly in the surroundings, making the atmosphere a little creepy. Under these circumstances, Wu Yan walked in a straight line until he reached the end of the corridor. Then, he abruptly made a turn and walked into another corridor. According to the staff member who came to inform them, the testing location was right in front of this corridor. The moment he turned into the corridor, Wu Yan heard a conversation. "I can't stand it, I just had a train crash. I didn't even get a chance to rest and now I have to take the test. At least give me some time to prepare and take a stroll around the academy." "Absolutely not. Why? Lei Zhen will definitely do something perverted with some vixen. That's why I have to forbid him." "Just how perverted am I in your heart?" "Ugh. I don't want to be perverted with Yaya. I can't believe he's interested in a vixen on the streets. I just came to the academy, okay? Can't you just stay by my side? I never said I came to the academy to look for a lover." Darling. I really should tie Lei Zhen up with a chain and tie him at home. Don't only react to sensitive words. Also, do you think I'm a dog?" Hearing this, Wu Yan stopped in his tracks. He raised his eyes and looked forward. Then, a man and a woman stood in front of a door. They entered Wu Yan's field of vision. It was a man and a woman who were having a heated conversation. The man seemed to be a freshman, but he was already wearing a uniform. A military belt was hanging around his waist. The belt was like a holster. There were daggers, flashlights, talismans, magic stones and other magic tools in it. He looked like he was about to undergo wilderness survival training. It was very eye-catching. From his face, he could faintly see a bit of immaturity. The man's age was about 16 or 17, but his eyes were as sharp as an eagle's. The lines of his body were sharp. Obviously, at such a young age, he had already experienced a lot of wind and rain. Beside the man, there was a woman. It was a girl wearing a kimono. The kimono was pitch black, with some golden edges and red ribbons in some places. It was very small, and the hem was like a short skirt. Under the constant blowing of the wind, a pair of white thighs were faintly discernible. The girl's hair was also black. It was long and straight to the waist. Her exposed shoulders were as white as snow and full of luster. It was simply not like a human girl should have. What left the deepest impression on people was still the young girl's face. No matter how you looked at it, it was like a delicate work of art. A pretty face that was carefully carved by someone, like a doll. No. This girl was most likely an automaton. From the conversation between the two, the man's name was Lei Zhen, and the woman's name was Yaya. Looking at the couple who didn't seem to notice his arrival and are still engaged in an intense conversation, Wu Yan's wine-red eyes flashed with a hint of a smile. This man and woman, Wu Yan naturally knew. They were the male and female protagonists of this world's original plot. The original plot also started when they came to Smart City and entered Walpurgis Wangli Academy to study. The time Wu Yan entered the dungeon world was the day before the plot started. After spending a day at the Walpurgis Wangli Machine Learning Academy, the plot of the original novel was officially announced to have begun. Please, let me calm down a little so that I can focus on the test later, okay? Then, do you need Yaya to help Leijin calm down? Although I don't know what you're going to do, but let me listen. Yaya's body is the coldest in the world. As long as I throw myself into her arms, Leijin's head will definitely cool down. It's my fault for choosing to listen to you. You better get out of my way. The smile in Wu Yan's eyes was instantly wiped clean by this conversation. It was replaced by twitching eyes. This pair, are they really here to be funny? Leijin seemed to have noticed something. His sharp gaze shot to the other side of the corridor, Wu Yan. Under Leijin's sharp gaze, Wu Yan took a step back and said calmly. Sorry for the interruption, please continue. Leijin's sharp eyes suddenly collapsed, and he began to explain in a panic. Student, you misunderstood, we're definitely not what you think. Really, Leijin. The girl named Yaya suddenly held her cheeks and said shyly. How can you be so bold in front of others? Who's bold in front of you? Who is it? Leijin shouted hysterically. Wu Yan laughed dryly and didn't say anything. Be quiet. Suddenly, the door next to Leijin and Yaya was opened. A cold and impatient voice came. It startled everyone. He turned his head and looked in the direction of the open door. The next moment, a rather cold and elegant figure appeared in front of the door. It was a woman with bright red hair combed in a bun on top of her head. The woman's eyes were blue, and there was an intellectual light that was so cold that it seemed to have a low temperature. She was wearing a teacher's uniform with a pair of glasses on her face. This was a woman who looked like a famous professor from somewhere no matter how one looked at her. I'm Professor Kimberly of Mechanical Physics. The cold and elegant woman named Kimberly said in an extremely cold tone. Although there are many professors in the school and I don't have the right to speak, I still have the right to kick out a noisy guy who hasn't even entered the school. Hearing this, Leijin and Yaya almost reflexively stiffened their bodies. Humph. Kimberly snorted coldly. She looked like she was in a bad mood, but from the calm blue eyes behind her glasses, it was clear that she was just saying it casually. From the looks of it, this was a woman with a cold personality. Kimberly first glanced at Leijin and Yaya, then looked away as if she lost interest. She turned to the other side of the corridor and looked at Wu Yan who was standing there yawning. When Kimberly saw Wu Yan, her cold eyes flashed with a strange light. Enough. Kimberly said coldly as she shifted her gaze away without leaving a trace. You're here for the test, come in. After that, Kimberly stepped aside to make way for them. Wu Yan and Leijin looked at each other and they walked towards the door at the same time. Wu Yan didn't know if it was an illusion. He had a feeling that Kimberly's gaze was fixed on him the whole time. Chapter 1585. Time passed quietly. In the central lecture hall of Walpurgis Royal Mechanic Academy, a door opened without warning in a dark corridor. Inside the door, two boys walked out slowly with light footsteps. However, the two of them had completely different expressions. One lowered his head with a gloomy face, his whole person exuded a heavy atmosphere, making people's hearts sink involuntarily. The other was a sharp contrast, his face was sloppy, even yawning, but there was a hint of helplessness in his wine-red eyes. That, Yaya, who had been waiting in the dark corridor, came over the moment she heard the sound of the door opening. Looking at Leijin's gloomy expression, she seemed to have a bad feeling and didn't know what to say. Leijin didn't say anything, silently handed a report in his hand to Yaya. Ye lowered her head and looked at the contents of the report card. Then, her eyes widened and she exclaimed. 1235th place. Because Walpurgis Royal Mechanic Academy was the highest school in the magic world, the fees were high, the threshold was high, and the requirements were harsh. Therefore, the entire Walpurgis Royal Mechanic Academy, as of just now, only 1235 students were enrolled. Now, with the addition of Wu Yan and Lei Zhen, there were only 1,237 people. That is to say, with the results just obtained, Lei Zhen, who was ranked 1235, was third from the bottom. It's the second from the bottom. However, on the side, Wu Yan said this and raised the report in his hand. I heard from Professor Kimberly that in the academy, there was a student who handed in a blank paper in every periodic test. So, he is the same as me, first from the bottom. Lei Zhen is second from the bottom. Hearing this, Lei Zhen didn't get any comfort at all. His face was still gloomy. No words. Third from the bottom? Second from the bottom? The difference between these two results. For Lei Zhen, there was no difference at all. Because, his goal. But compared to this despair-inducing ranking, it's much more. Compared to Lei Zhen's gloomy expression, Wu Yan was particularly casual. He didn't care at all about the results in his hands, which made Yaya hesitate and carefully asked. That. Don't you care about your results? Wu Yan seemed to be a little surprised that Yaya suddenly talked to him, but he still nodded. For me, this kind of results on paper are meaningless. If you want to rely on the ranking to get something here, then use your strength to fight for it. After all, this academy is more realistic than us. Wu Yan raised the report in his hand carelessly and grinned. For the academy, if the puppet users have extraordinary strength, then even if their theoretical results are terrible, they won't care at all. In fact, they might even open the door for them, won't they? You're right. Lei's expression suddenly, his gloomy expression, and gloomy. This is an academy that nurtures excellent puppeteers. As long as you have strength, it's fine. The two last-place students in the academy are comforting each other. It's so touching I want to cry. At this moment, Kimberly also walked out of the door. She glanced at the three people standing in the corridor with cold eyes and spoke sarcastically. But I'm not as happy as you guys, You don't have to use that kind of tone. Yaya glared at Kimberly angrily. It's not like the results will affect you, unfortunately, it just has to affect me. Kimberly said in an indifferent tone. After all, I've just officially become the teacher of the two last-place students, teacher? Wu Yan and Lei Zhen were stunned. Indeed, as you said, this is a school that specializes in nurturing outstanding puppet users. If a student is strong enough, then the school will turn a blind eye to his theoretical results and won't expel him. Kimberly pushed up the glasses on her face. However, after 4 years of classes, if you want to get a graduation certificate, you must have enough credits. So, even if you think that you have strength that others can't reach, you have to work hard to earn credits for me, those who are at the bottom of the rankings. Your dormitory is in Tortoise Hut. It's where the third-rate students with the worst grades in the academy gather. Kimberly snorted and turned her head away. I've already talked to the warden, you just have to go and get a bed. With that, Kimberly turned around, as if she was planning to leave. Wait. Teacher Kimberly. Lei Zhen looked at Kimberly's back and suddenly called out. I have a question, I want to ask you, question. Kimberly turned around, her expression was still cold. Although I think you'll have a lot of questions with your grades, I'll tell you what you want to know in class. If you want to solve your problems, then go to class. What I want to ask is not about your studies. Lei Zhen's eyes suddenly sharpened. If I want to join the night meeting, what should I do? Kimberly showed surprise on her face. Wu Yan stopped yawning, his wine-red eyes showing a hint of contemplation. Only the top 100 students can attend the night party. Kimberly turned her gaze to the report card in Lei Zhen's hand. As for your results, they should have been clearly written on it, right? As far as I know, there's not much time left before the night meeting begins, and there's only one time left for the examination of the results. For new students like us who entered the school halfway, doesn't this mean that we only have one chance? Lei Zhen laughed as if he was torturing himself. he teased Jiang Chen. Besides, teacher just said that the purpose of this academy is to cultivate excellent puppeteers. If you're strong enough, the academy will turn a blind eye to your grades. Then, there should be puppeteers with bad grades who can join the night meeting, right? Kimberly looked at Lei Jin coldly. This academy is the highest academy in the magic world. Just graduating is enough for a puppeteer to have a meteoric rise. Why would you want to join a bloody banquet? Of course. Lei Jin said without hesitation. Of course it's to become the Demon King. Kimberly fell silent. Wu Yan, who had been quietly listening to their conversation, shook his head, sighed, and looked at Lei Jin. There is only one purpose for the night meeting, and that is to select the best puppet user in a generation that is held every 4 years. It's a place where the strong preys on the weak more than the cruel forest. Therefore, if a person who is qualified to participate is defeated by a person who is not qualified in a skillful battle, with just one sentence, Lei Jin and Yaya instantly understood the meaning of it. Snatch, someone else's participation. Lei Jin fell silent. What? Kimberly said sarcastically. You can't even bring yourself to snatch someone else's participation? No. No. Lei Jin's expression became firm. I'm sorry, but I must qualify for the night meeting. Not bad at all. Kimberly sized up Lei Jin. Then, she looked at Wu Yan with a profound look in her eyes. Of course, if you have the same strength as the last place here, you might be able to qualify him? Lei Jin and Yaya froze and looked at Wu Yan. Wu Yan blinked his eyes in bewilderment. He had a nonchalant attitude about this matter. What do you mean? I'm also a new student, right? It's a pity that you're a new student. Now, the entire academy probably knows you. Kimberly smiled for the first time. She smiled as if she saw an interesting toy. After all, you're the one who taught the number 1 genius in the history of the academy a lesson before you even entered the academy. Taught the number 1 genius a lesson? Lei Jin and Yaya widened their eyes. Teacher. Wu Yan smiled bitterly. You've been observing me because you knew about this, right? Oh. Kimberly raised an eyebrow. You are indeed quite capable to be able to sense my gaze. However, the night meeting and your strength have nothing to do with me. I'm only concerned about whether you can get enough credits to pass the course so that I can get my bonus. With that, Kimberly turned around and walked away. Do your best. Last place students. In an instant, the corridor fell into a state of silence. Chapter 1586. Walpurgis Royal Mechanical Academy, Main Street. Walking on the main street, Wu Yan looked at the report card in his hand and scratched his face in distress. Last place. This result was within Wu Yan's expectations. After all, Walpurgis Royal Mechanic Academy was a school that nurtured puppeteers. Most of the content taught there was related to magic tricks. Wu Yan, on the other hand, knew nothing about magic tricks other than the theory behind them. Therefore, in the knowledge test just now, he gloriously handed in a blank paper, becoming the true last place. Of course, Wu Yan didn't care about the theory test at all, just like what he did in the Central University lecture hall. The real reason that caused him to reveal a distressed expression was because from the beginning, 2 pairs of eyes that seemed to be able to pierce through one's skin had been tightly locked onto him, causing him to feel uncomfortable all over. I say, Raisin-san. Wu Yan stopped and he turned around. He looked at Raisin and Yaya who were staring at him. If there's anything you're dissatisfied with, you can say it directly. Let's set things straight. Since the academy is so big, it's fine if we don't meet again. Or if you want to challenge me to a duel, I don't have a problem either. But can you please stop staring at me? You misunderstood. You misunderstood. Lei Jin didn't move his eyes away. Instead, his gaze sharpened and the corner of his mouth curled up. I'm not unhappy with you. However, I'm very interested in the one-on-one that you mentioned. In other words. Wu Yan rubbed his forehead. You heard from Kimberly that I defeated the #1 student in the academy, so you want to prove your strength by defeating me, right? My goal is to become the Demon King. Lei Zhen didn't try to hide anything as he stared at Wu Yan. On the other hand, the top student of the academy is the puppet user who is most likely to become the Demon King. If you can defeat him, then as long as I can defeat you, it will prove that I have the ability to become the Demon King, right? What do you mean by that? Wu Yan laughed and shook his head. If you can't defeat me, then. If you can't defeat me, then prove that you don't have the ability to become the Demon King. Will you give up? Of course not. Lei Zhen said without hesitation. I won't give up on becoming the Demon King. Then your provocation this time is meaningless. Wu Yan sneered. After all, regardless of whether you defeat me or not, you will still attend the night gathering, right? Lei Zhen was speechless. Wu Yan. Also, there's one thing you're wrong about. Wu Yan slowed down. He shrugged. I didn't defeat the #1 student in the academy. It was just that they had the upper hand in a skirmish. If we really fight, we don't even know if we can win against them. But that's enough to prove that you're quite strong. Lei Zhen looked at Wu Yan seriously. Teacher Kimberly said so. If I have the same strength as you, then it shouldn't be hard for me to qualify for the night gathering, right? Wu Yan cursed Kimberly in his mind. This cold and elegant teacher who doesn't even seem to have any reaction to being teased really knows how to find trouble for others. Lei Zhen, your goal is to qualify for the night gathering, right? Wu Yan sighed and raised his hand. But please look carefully. I don't have any gloves, so I'm not a participant of the night gathering. Even if you defeat me, you won't be qualified to join the night gathering. Lei Zhen stopped talking and stared at Wu Yan, silently telling Wu Yan that he hasn't given up on the idea of fighting Wu Yan. Wu Yan closed his eyes when he saw Lei Zhen's expression. Then, he opened his eyes and his wine-red eyes were filled with a cold expression. Enough is enough, second from the bottom. As Wu Yan's voice sounded, a terrifying mana storm violently surged from Wu Yan's body like a physical impact. Dong! Before Lei Zhen and Yaya could react, the mana storm hit them mercilessly, and they were blown away as if they had been hit by a wall. Ugh! Lei Zhen and Yaya's faces turned pale. They quickly stabilized their bodies and somersaulted on the ground. Their heels rubbed against the ground and they slid about 10 meters away. Lei Zhen and Yaya looked up at Wu Yan, who was violently surging with mana storm like a stormy sea. They were shocked. I'm not afraid of challenges, but I hate trouble. Wu Yan's emotionless voice came from the center of the storm of mana. I will tell you clearly, I will not participate in the night party, so even if you have your eyes on me, it is useless. However, if you insist on challenging me, I won't mind, as long as you are not afraid of hurting your own confidence. As soon as Lin Yun's words fell, the shockwave of mana gradually subsided, and the storm of mana also gradually dissipated. When everything returned to normal, Wu Yan was nowhere to be seen at the epicenter of the storm of mana. Only Lei Zhen and Yaya were left at the scene. They looked at Wu Yan's original position with cold sweat on their cheeks. Lei Zhen. Yaya lowered her head in shame. Sorry, I did not react in time. I understand now. Yaya. Lei Zhen was still looking straight ahead with a forced smile. With such a terrifying magic power, even if that last place is not outstanding in magic tricks, he might still be stronger than me. Saying this, Lei Zhen let the cold sweat slide down his face, and his knees trembled imperceptibly. He was afraid. The puppeteer's automaton relied on the puppeteer's magic power to survive. Without the mana provided by the puppeteer, the automaton would not only slow down, it might even shut down all of its senses and enter a dormant state. Therefore, for an automaton, the most important thing was none other than magic power. In this case, if a puppeteer had powerful mana, then even if the automaton's performance was poor and its magic circuit was weak, it could still use high mana output to make the automaton perform at a level that ordinary puppeteers could not match. Lei Zhen had not seen Wu Yan's true strength. Lei Zhen understood one thing when he saw this terrifying and unimaginable amount of magic power. Just now, if they had really fought, then his chances of winning would not have been more than 1%. In fact, if Wu Yan was also good at magic, then Lei Jin would have been defeated in an instant. Even if Lei Jin did his best in the battle. Even if Yaya was the most advanced automaton, she would still be able to do it. Even if Lei Jin could perform at 120% of Yaya's performance. Even if he could come up with a cunning strategy to exploit the enemy's weakness. Is there a 10% chance of winning? In this world, there is no lack of talented people. The overwhelming difference in strength made Lei Jin feel as if the ground under his feet had turned into mud, causing him to sink continuously, and his smile became weak. Compared to those who are truly talented, I am just a dabbler. Yaya was speechless when she heard Lei Jin's self-deprecating words. She felt inferior to her own talent. She even felt despair. This is not the first time Lei Jin showed such feelings. After all, Lei Jin always thought he had no talent. As for Lei Jin, it had only been 2 years since he started to cultivate magic and practice his skillful magic. If he wants to win against those who started practicing magic and puppeteers from a young age, he has to put in more effort. If Raisin and Yaya knew that it hasn't even been a year since Wu Yan started cultivating his magic power, what would they think of him? As for magic, that's even more impossible. Taking a deep breath, Raisin closed his eyes. Wu Yan and a silhouette wearing a silver mask appeared in his mind at the same time. He spoke in a somewhat confused tone. Can I surpass them? Chapter 1587. When the sun once again shone upon the world and sprinkled down the radiance of life, the Walpurgis Wangli Robotics Academy was once again bustling with noise and excitement. In the corner of the academy, there was a student dormitory. This was a dormitory that was comparable in size to a hotel, and there was a courtyard in front of the door. The flower beds and old trees swayed gently in the breeze, and a street for people to pass through passed through. The old stone brick seemed to be telling others about the years it had been through, and it gradually extended forward and connected to the door of the student dormitory. From the perspective of the environment, although this dormitory was a bit old, but in terms of size and design, it was comparable to some of the more famous hotels outside. It should be quite good to live in this dormitory. Even so, this dormitory that was not too bad was the smallest, oldest, and least welcomed dormitory in the entire Walpurgis Royal Mechanical Academy. Tortoise Hut. This was the dormitory that only the group of students who ranked last in the Walpurgis Wangli Academy would be arranged to live in. In other words, the students who lived in this dormitory were either problem children or poor students who fell behind others in the development of puppeteers. It was a dormitory that belonged to the poor students of the academy. Because the Tortoise Hut was the dormitory for the poor students, the academy gave the worst treatment. Therefore, from the outside, the dormitory looked a bit old, but it was still the dormitory of the highest academy in the magic world, so it definitely wouldn't be shabby. A dormitory room was as big as the living room of an ordinary family, and there was a desk, a wardrobe, and 2 double beds against the wall. It was much better than the treatment of a normal hotel. Of course, because the Tortoise Hut was the dormitory for the poor students, some rooms that weren't used often would inevitably have some mold, and dust would cover the floor. Even there were some. The ceiling was still cracked. At the very least, the room that was assigned to Wu Yan was like this, but now, the room that belonged to Wu Yan. However, it was completely different. He didn't know when. The cracked ceiling was all repaired, and together with the surrounding walls, they were all painted new. The pink and white wall paint shone brightly, making the whole room extremely bright. The dust on the floor disappeared in just one night, making the wooden floor look shiny and translucent. There was also an expensive carpet on the floor, and the curtains were replaced with new ones. It looked like the room of a noble. It could be considered luxurious. Not only that, but there was also some furniture in the room. There were potted plants and fresh flowers placed on top of the furniture. The fragrance replaced the musty smell that had originally permeated the room, making people feel much better. Ikaros, Nagisa, and Cannon were the main reason why this shabby dorm room had undergone such a huge transformation. Nagisa was a clean freak. Looking at the musty, dusty and old room, how could Nagisa possibly live there? And so, under Nagisa's orders, Ikaros and Cannon's help, the three girls tidied up the room inside and out. They also bought some paint and painted the walls and ceiling. The room was completely renovated. As for the furniture, potted plants, vases, carpet, and curtains, they were all bought by Natsuki. Natsuki looked like she was only 10 years old, but on Itagami Island, whether it was the academy's office or home, everything was more luxurious than the average person. She was a true noble. Natsuki didn't have any particular requirements for this temporary residence, but she didn't want it to be too shabby. So, she brought Astria along with her and went out to buy some decorations to decorate the place. In any case, Wu Yan doesn't lack money. After exchanging some gold coins for some paper money, he distributed some to each of the 5 girls so that they can spend as they please. Therefore, a room that was more luxurious than the other student dormitories, regardless of the size of the room, was born. Originally, the student dormitory in Tortoise House was 2 people per room. 2 students would live in the same dormitory. That's why there are 2 double beds in the room. On the other hand, Wu Yan has 5 automatons that need a place to stay as well. One room isn't enough to begin with. If another roommate moves in, especially if it's a guy, it's going to be very inconvenient. Due to this, the dormitory supervisor generously let Wu Yan stay in the room alone. He patted his chest to prove that he wouldn't arrange another roommate for Wu Yan. Judging from the dormitory supervisor's enthusiasm, he probably knows about Wu Yan's short fight with Magnus and he won. That's why he's so friendly. Now that he has a dorm room and the exam is over, Wu Yan is officially a student of Walpurgis Wangli Machine Learning Academy. In the morning, Natsuki, Ikaros, Astria, Nagisa, and Cannon stood in a row. Their gazes were focused in front of them. Over there, Wu Yan is wearing a simple white shirt and black trousers. Over the white shirt is a black leather jacket with a singlet style over it. He has already changed into his student uniform and is adjusting his collar while spreading his hands. How is it? Is it okay? It suits you very well. Sensei. Nagisa was the first to call out. Her big round eyes glowed brightly as she smiled happily. Nagisa-sensei is wearing a student uniform and going to school as a student. It feels weird. That's why you shouldn't call me sensei, people will find it weird too. Wu Yan smiled at Nagisa and Cannon. You can just call me by my name, just call you by your name? Nagisa and Cannon looked at each other in confusion. If that's the case. Cannon said hesitantly. It will feel even weirder. Yen. 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 Nagisa lowered her head, she mumbled Wu Yan's name a few times. Then, she cupped her face and she blushed. No, no. Nagisa will be shy. Why don't we all call him Master with me and Ikaro-sensei? Astria said excitedly. That way, everyone will be the same. I'll pass. Natsuki glared at Wu Yan. I won't call you Master. I thought so too. Wu Yan shrugged. He rolled his eyes and smiled at Nagisa and Cannon. How about you call me Oniai-chan? 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 Nagisa jumped. Won't that make me even more shy? Oniai-chan? Oniai-chan. Cannon blushed and whispered. If sensei Oniai-chan is happy, that's fine too. Then it's decided. Wu Yan felt refreshed. Then Nagisa and Cannon will call me Oniai-chan. Nagisa and Cannon blushed furiously. Master. Ikaros tugged at Wu Yan's sleeve. She looked at Wu Yan with a pair of indigo eyes that exuded a pitiful aura. Master, do you like people calling you Oniai-chan? I can call you Oniai-chan too. Astria puffed up her chest and looked at Wu Yan with hope. Is that okay? Master. Wu Yan felt an itch in his heart when he heard this. He wanted to nod and agree, but Natsuki shot him a cold glare. Don't get carried away. I think it's fine. Wu Yan's expression froze. He laughed dryly. Ikaros, Astria, you can continue to call me master. Yes. Natsuki retracted her cold gaze. Wu Yan sighed in relief. He looked at the girls. Natsuki, Ikaros, Astria, Nagisa, and Kanon changed into new outfits. Her upper body was white with red edges, and her shoulders were bare, revealing her smooth shoulders. Her top was pulled down to her ankles, and her lower body was covered by a red short skirt. Her thighs were covered by a pair of white high socks, and her feet were wearing long boots. Wu Yan had the system extract images from his memories to replicate this outfit. It's an item that won't break no matter what kind of battle he goes through. Of course, this outfit won't break, it doesn't have any defensive capabilities. Looking at the girl's attire, Wu Yan couldn't help but feel nostalgic. After all, this is what Asuna used to wear when she was still the vice leader of the Knights of the Blood in Sao. Last night, Wu Yan wanted to exchange some clothes for the girls so that they wouldn't get damaged in a fight. Asuna's outfit popped into his mind. For Wu Yan, Asuna's graceful fighting style in Sao is probably the one that left the deepest impression on him. All right. Wu Yan got rid of his longing for Asuna and he stood up. He spoke in a high-spirited manner. Let's go eat at the student cafeteria first. Let's go to class after that. Yes. The cheerful response echoed in the luxurious room. At this moment, a voice echoed in the dormitory from outside the room. A student from our dorm is going to challenge Magnus, the #1 student of the academy. Wu Yan and Ko fell silent when they heard this voice. Chapter 1588. Walpurgis Wangli Academy, Main Street. Right now, there's only half an hour left before class starts. However, in one of the corners of the main street, several hundred students had gathered on both sides and were pointing at the main street, causing an uproar to break out. On the main street surrounded by students, a boy wearing a boy's uniform with a military belt on his waist and a girl wearing a black kimono looked forward with a twisted face. This boy and girl are the same as Wu Yan, the new student Raisin and his automaton, Yaya. In front of Lei Zhen and Yaya, there was a man with a silver mask on his face and a cloak over his student uniform. His whole body exuded an astonishing sense of oppression. He was accompanied by two girls in black dresses with curtains hanging in front of their faces. The #1 genius in the history of the academy, Magnus. Just like not too long ago, the #1 puppet user, who occupied the top position among all the students in the academy, was once again provoked by a freshman. If they had seen this scene a few days ago, the students of the Walpurgis Royal Mechanical Academy would have definitely treated the new student who challenged Magnus as an overconfident joke. But now, with the rumor of a new student defeating the #1 in the academy, the students more or less suppressed the disdain in their hearts and started to point at Raisin. Among the crowd gathered at the corner of the main street, one of the corners was unusually empty. Not a single student moved in this direction. Because, there's a girl who everyone fears, who has the nickname T-Rex, standing there. Idiot, an idiot so stupid that it makes people pity him, an idiot so stupid that it makes people think he's cute. An idiot so stupid that it makes people want to laugh. A small dragon stood on her shoulder. Charlotte looked at Lei Zhen, who was confronting Magnus, and spat out harsh words. Seriously, are all the new students this arrogant? Why do they like to challenge the #1 monster in the academy? Don't say that, Charles. Charles. Sigmund, who was standing on Charlot's shoulder, shook his head. Maybe. This kid can be like him. Show off a shocking battle prowess? Do you think there are so many freaks in the world? Charlotte's tone became indignant. Last place in the academy, but not long ago, he completely suppressed the #1 in the academy. Where did such a freak come from? That's true. Sigmund's tone was still calm. Furthermore, he had also revealed some unknown facts. Didn't you sacrifice your self-study time last night to ask about that freak's results? I didn't ask about it. Charlotte's indignant expression turned into panic as she quibbled. I just wanted to rest, so I asked around. Is that so? Sigmund's voice was laced with a hint of a smile. Then, why do we still need to find out which dormitory and room he's in after finding out his results? It's to make it easier to find him. Then why did you specifically write down all the things you heard in a book? That's also to prepare for the night meeting, to collect information. But didn't he say that he doesn't attend the night party? Shut up. Charlotte's embarrassment turned into anger as she slapped Sigmund's shoulder. Be careful, or I'll replace all your chicken with corn. Facing Charlotte's slap, Sigmund nimbly flew up, dodging Charlotte's slap and asking a sharp question. You're interested in him, right? That's not true. Charlotte shouted angrily. I don't have that kind of perverted feelings for him. Perverted feelings? As soon as Charlotte finished speaking, a voice sounded behind her. Who do you have perverted feelings for? He put on his uniform and brought the 5 girls with him. Wu Yan walked over to Charlotte with a new set of clothes. You. Charlotte was stunned when she saw Wu Yan in his uniform. It seems like she hasn't gotten used to it yet. When she saw the group of young ladies dressed in white, red-edged blouses and red miniskirts, Charlotte revealed a stunned expression. Not only Charlotte, all the students were captivated by Natsuki, Ikaros, Astria, Nagisa, and Kanon's white figures. Originally, these young ladies already possessed breathtaking beauty. Now, coupled with their heroic outfits, they simply looked like beautiful commanders of an army. Not only were they beautiful, they also gave off a valiant feeling. They were so dazzling that no one dared to look directly at them. Looking at the 5 beautiful young ladies, even Charlotte couldn't help but exclaim. It's really a blessing that you've accumulated over several lifetimes to have 5 automatons like this. I'll take it that you're exaggerating. Wu Yan looked at the main street. Whoosh, as if it was planned, when Wu Yan looked at the main street, several figures flashed by and appeared in front of Lei Zhen. It's Magnus Automaton. 6 female automatons appeared in front of Lei Zhen and pointed their sharp weapons at Lei Zhen's throat. It's just like what happened to Wu Yan not long ago. But this time, none of the weapons that were pointed at Lei Zhen's throat were bound by the chains of discipline. As for Lei Zhen's automaton, Yaya turned pale with fright on the spot, but she didn't dare to move, fearing that she would trigger the automaton and cause Lei Zhen to lose his life. Cold sweat dripped down Lei Zhen's face. His twisted expression froze. It's also a new student challenging the Academy's #1. However, the unexpected didn't happen today. The new student was subdued by the Academy's #1 in an instant. Seeing this, the surrounding students stopped making noise and finally began to look at Lei Zhen with disdain. How should I put it, they're a bunch of nauseating and realistic people. What an idiot. Charlotte said sarcastically. If the Academy's #1 is so easy to deal with, the Demon King wouldn't be so hard to fight for. That was a bit reckless. Wu Yan frowned when he saw Lei Zhen being surrounded by 6 automatons with weapons at his throat. He looked at Magnus. Let him go, Magnus. The moment the voice rang out, the entire place turned into a silent space. The students first looked at Wu Yan and then at Magnus. Then, they focused their attention on the automaton that is enough to form a combat squad. They gulped down a mouthful of saliva. Magnus looked at Wu Yan and didn't look away. Magnus and the other automaton girls also focused their attention on Wu Yan. They tensed up their bodies and went on high alert. At this moment, it's as if the crowd around them disappeared, leaving only Wu Yan and Magnus in the world. The temperature in the room seemed to have plummeted. It's very frightening. After a while, Magnus retracted his gaze. His automaton seemed to have received some sort of order as it leapt away from Ryzen and stood in front of Magnus, guarding against Wu Yan. Let's go. However, Magnus turned around and left the scene with the 6 vigilant automatons. The surrounding students also seemed to have unlocked some taboo and became noisy again. Lei Zhen stared at Magnus back with hatred and anger in his eyes. He then turned around and looked at Wu Yan. He walked in front of Wu Yan. Let's have a fight. The hubbub of the crowd instantly died down, When he said this, Lei Zhen didn't look as confused as before. Instead, he looked at Wu Yan with a resolute gaze. Charlotte, who was about to mock Wu Yan, shut her mouth and didn't say anything. Wu Yan looked at Lei Zhen in the eye and he nodded after a while. As you wish. Chapter 1589. Walpurgis Royal Mecha Academy, Drill Grounds. This was one of the training grounds specially provided for the students of the Walpurgis Royal Mechanic Academy to practice and train in mechanic magic and mechanic combat. It's not much time before class starts, but the training ground is packed with people. Students gathered in groups of 2s and 3s around the center of the practice field. They looked inside the practice field and whispered to each other. At the center of the training ground, Wu Yan, Natsuki, Ikaros, Astria, Nagisa, and Cannon stood on one side. On the other side, Raisin and Yaya stood in a standoff with Wu Yan and company. Raisin's gaze swept across Natsuki, Ikaros, Astria, Nagisa, and Cannon. His chiseled face was tense and his gaze was heavy. Just like the rumors say, he has 5 automatons. So that's how it is. Only the same one-man force can suppress a one-man force, huh? My partners are more like a team than an army. Wu Yan, who is standing in front of the 5 girls, chuckled when he met Raishin's gaze. However, classmate Lei Zhen, you've done your homework quite well. You've even heard of those so-called rumors so quickly. After all, you're different from me. You're an eye-catching guy. Lei Zhen said with a fake smile. I'm just a dabbler, so I often do things that overestimate myself. If I don't do some preparation work in advance, I'll be in trouble. If I didn't prepare myself beforehand, I wouldn't have any chance of winning. That means... You've been thinking about defeating me? Wu Yan looked at Lei Zhen with a perplexed expression. Why? Didn't I tell you before that I wouldn't attend the night party? Like I said, I'm a guy who always does things beyond my ability. Lei Zhen put his index and middle fingers together as if he was forming a hand seal. He spread out his other hand. It was aimed at Yaya, who was standing in front of him. I have my own goal. But that goal is unreachable to me, but you easily achieved it. So, let me see how far away I am from the power that can help me achieve my goal. Anne. Lei Zhen's face suddenly showed a smile full of determination. My partner is the best automaton in the world. As soon as he finished speaking, a burst of mana emerged from Raisin's palm and turned into a circle of light, gradually rippling and fluctuating. Yaya, who was standing in front of Lei Zhen, suddenly opened her eyes. Her body seemed to be wrapped in a layer of transparent fluorescent light, and the lines of her body flashed with a layer of light. Her originally harmless body was instantly filled with power, and the air around her surged slightly. Yaya, level 62. Wu Yan shook his head when he received the system feedback. Just as Raisin had said, Yaya was the best automaton in the world. To be precise, it was one of the best automaton in the world. Yaya was made by the famous automaton craftsman named Shuko Karyosai. She was the moon puppet in one of the 3 masterpieces of Snow and Moon that she was most proud of. Putting aside its magic circuit, in terms of performance alone, there were automatons in this world that were comparable to Yaya, but none that could surpass Yaya existed. Therefore, as an automaton, Yaya's strength was unquestionable. There was no way he was only level 62. Right now, Yaya's level was only 62. It was probably because Lei Zhen wasn't able to fully utilize Yaya's abilities. Many words. I told you, I didn't defeat Magnus, I just got the upper hand in a skirmish. Wu Yan mumbled to himself as he looked at the sky. Although Magnus has mobilized all his automatons, none of his automatons have activated their magic circuits or used any magic. Although I only have 2 automatons on my side, they have indeed activated their magic circuits. Lucian said with a smile, although Magnus has mobilized all his automatons, none of his automatons have activated their magic circuits. So, if we really fought Magnus, we wouldn't know who would win. Wu Yan looked at Raisin with a smirk. But I also told you, I'm not afraid of a challenge. A surge of mana erupted from Wu Yan's body. It turned into a small ray of light and entered Astria's body. Just like how she received Raisin's mana every night, Astria's body turned transparent for a moment. Her body glowed with a layer of light. Then, the power that originally belonged to her surged out of her body, freeing her from the restraints. Astria understood after receiving Wu Yan's mana. Wu Yan wants her to make a move. An illusory square frame appeared in Astria's crimson eyes. A pure white halo appeared above her head. A pair of pure white wings spread out from her back, stirring up a gust of wind. Whoosh! Before the spectators could admire her angelic posture, Astria dashed forward, leaving behind a trail of afterimages. She arrived in front of Yaya in an instant with a deafening sonic boom. A vibrating lightsaber appeared in Astria's hand. Astria raised the lightsaber above her head and swung it down at Yaya, who couldn't react in time. Yaya! At the critical moment, Lei Zhen, who was still on guard, reacted. Lei Zhen's eyes widened in an instant. He clenched his teeth and extracted the largest amount of magic power from his body. While letting it flow into Yaya's body, he used forcible domination. Basically, automatons were able to move on their own. After all, an automaton had its own personality and intellect. Naturally, it would also make independent judgments and actions. The so-called forced domination was a method that allowed the puppeteer to forcibly control his automaton to a certain extent. Raisin used forced domination to control Yaya's body and forced her to take a step back before she could react. Then, the vibrating laser lightsaber whistled from top to bottom as it brushed past the tip of Yaya's nose and slashed down. However, in the next moment, Lei Zhen and Yaya froze on the spot. Astria, who was slashing down with her laser lightsaber a moment ago, suddenly disappeared. Whoosh! The sound of something breaking through the air echoed. Her afterimage elongated in the air. Raisin felt a gust of wind hitting his body. His vision turned black and a lightsaber appeared in front of him. The vibrating lightsaber was pointed at Raisin's forehead. Astria appeared in front of Raisin with the lightsaber in her hand. She stared at Raisin with a pair of crimson eyes that sent chills down Raisin's spine. Raisin! Yaya turned around and saw Astria pointing her lightsaber at Raisin's forehead. She froze on the spot and her expression changed. Lei Zhen looked at Astria, who was standing in front of him. Her crimson eyes rippled. She looked cold and indifferent. Lei Zhen's eyes were filled with emotions. In the end, it turned into helplessness. Facing Magnus 6 automaton, Lei Zhen was taken down in an instant. Against Wu Yan, a mere automaton, Rai Xin was captured in a single move. The gap he wanted to know about was clearly shown in front of his eyes. In the end, Raisin forced out a sentence with a bitter smile. I surrender. Chapter 1590. I admit defeat. When this sentence echoed in the air above the practice field, the whispers of the surrounding students became louder and louder. Their gazes were all focused on Wu Yan. There was a freshman who was able to control 5 automatons by himself and defeated Magnus. This rumor, even though it did spread throughout the academy, how many people actually believed it? Just like Wu Yan said, in that extremely short battle, Magnus used all 6 automatons, but none of them activated their magic circuits. Of the 5 automatons around Wu Yan, only 2 made a move. They used their magic circuits and performed magic. The other 3 automatons didn't use their full strength. That's why, with both sides holding back, even though Wu Yan is the winner of the encounter that day, if Wu Yan and Magnus were to fight for real, no one would know who would win or lose without a real fight. Plus, Magnus is the #1 student in the history of the academy. How many people would be willing to believe that such an existence would lose to a new student? So, even though the rumor of a new student defeating the #1 student in the academy spread like wildfire, it only increased Wu Yan's reputation. Almost no one actually believed that Wu Yan could defeat Magnus. And now, Wu Yan once again made a move in front of the public. He only used a single automaton. The power of this automaton shocked the hearts of all the students. Especially that speed that made people's hearts palpitate. Compared to Astria's magic circuit that hasn't been spread yet, it left a deeper impression on the students. At this point, finally, the students in the academy understood a fact. Even if the new student with the 5 automatons didn't truly defeat Magnus, his strength would definitely be able to catch up to Magnus. At the very least, this new student's strength is definitely at the level of a 13-man. This point, there's no doubt about it, it's just as I expected. In a corner, Charlotte crossed her arms. She looked at Astria in awe. Astria's speed is truly astonishing. Astria's speed is naturally fast. After all, Astria has the highest mobility and acceleration among all the angeloids. She's the fastest among all the girls. Hinajaku was probably the only one who could match Astria in terms of speed. Of course, that doesn't include Natsuki, who uses space to teleport. It's purely based on speed. She knew Astria's speed was purely from her own body and not from her magic circuit. That was why Charlotte was so surprised when she saw the effects of magic. I wonder which master craftsman made Astria, to be able to make such high-quality puppets. He muttered such a sentence. Charlot lifted his foot and was just about to walk towards the middle of the training ground when another person from the surrounding crowd arrived, causing Charlot's body to freeze on the spot. Clap. 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 While Astria retreated to Wu Yan's side, the crowd clapped their hands in a pretentious manner, attracting the attention of everyone present. It's just as the rumors say, the 2 new students aren't simple characters, as such a voice rang out. A man in uniform walked out from the crowd. It was a woman with golden hair. His voice is clear and elegant. He looks like a handsome man. The crowd started to get excited when they saw the handsome man. The surrounding students immediately burst into an uproar. Presumably, they all knew this handsome man. Among the noisy crowd, the girls looked at him with admiration and admiration. It's not hard to imagine how popular this handsome man is among the girls. However, looking at this handsome man with a kind smile on his face, there were 3 people present who were more or less different from the others. Lei Zhen sized him up. Charlotte had a strange expression on her face. Wu Yan narrowed his eyes and smiled. He looked like he was mocking something. Nice to meet you. The man bowed with a friendly smile. Can I borrow some time? The boy was smiling when he said that, and he didn't seem to have any automatons with him. Wu Yan and Lei Zhen looked down at the same time. They stopped at the left arm of this handsome guy with a smile on his face. There was an armband with the word "Soar" embroidered on it with golden ribbons. In other words, this person is the disciplinary committee member of the Walpurgis Royal Tactical Academy. In addition, he was also wearing a pair of black fingerless gloves embroidered with golden words like Charlotte's. The owner of the gloves. This person is qualified to participate in the night party. But that's not surprising. If you want to be a disciplinary committee member of the Walpurgis Royal Tactical Academy, you need to be able to deal with some trouble. Otherwise, you won't be chosen. That's why the disciplinary committee members of the Walpurgis Royal Tactical Academy are usually the top students who have the strength to participate in the night party. It's considered a gathering camp for night party participants. The man in front of him isn't just a normal night party participant. Borrow time? Lei Zhen looked at the handsome man expressionlessly. Felix Kingsford, ranked 4th in the academy. Not only is he one of the famous 13, but he's also the head of the disciplinary committee. Felix Kingsford, who is ranked 2nd to last, wants to borrow time from me. Ditto. Wu Yan shrugged and he continued in a casual manner. Last place in the academy, please. Felix had a friendly smile on his face that could make anyone soften, relax, and look harmless. However, both Wu Yan and Raishin expressed their resistance to him. The surrounding students went into an uproar. Some of the girls looked at Wu Yan and Lei Zhen with piercing gazes. These guys definitely don't understand the saying, the weasel pays a visit to the chicken, or one doesn't visit a temple for no reason. Please don't say that. Felix exclaimed in praise. Although your ranking isn't good, you're both very strong. I failed both challenges. Lei Zhen glanced at Felix and mocked himself. I really don't know how you see how strong I am. After that, Lei Zhen turned around and left with Yaya. Wait, Felix didn't even look at Lei Zhen. He smiled calmly. I'm here to give you the qualifications to participate in the night party. Are you going to ignore me? Lei Zhen's footsteps suddenly came to a halt. Wu Yan pursed his lips and walked to the other side. Wait, I don't want to participate in the night party. Felix wanted to ask him to stay, but Wu Yan stopped him with one sentence without even turning his head. So, please don't look for me for troublesome matters. Leaving these words behind, Wu Yan led the girls out of the training grounds through the crowd that automatically parted to make a path for them. That idiot, for some reason, Charlotte hid in the crowd and watched Wu Yan leave. Then, she glanced at Felix, who had a helpless expression on his face. She stomped her feet in anger before she snuck out of the crowd and left the scene. On the way to the lecture hall, Natsuki suddenly spoke. That man just now, you have to be careful, oh? Wu Yan raised an eyebrow and smiled at Natsuki. What? Did you notice something? You should say you know something, right? Natsuki glanced at Wu Yan. I haven't seen your memories of this world, but that guy gave me a bad feeling. So, I'm just reminding you, don't worry. Wu Yan chuckled. I don't mind being a mousetrap. Chapter 1591. Magicians who could control automatons, perform clever magic, and engage in clever battles were usually called puppeteers. And those who specialized in creating automatons, installing magic circuits on automatons, and even developing high-performance automatons and powerful magic circuits were called puppeteers. Although the Walpurgis Academy was a place to cultivate outstanding puppeteers and export talents to the outside world, there were also puppeteers who wanted to become puppeteers. After all, controlling automatons and making automatons were two completely different technologies. Using and making were also two completely different levels of difficulty. However, whether it was puppeteers or puppeteers, they could not do without automatons. Therefore, there were definitely many similarities. Because of this, the Walpurgis Academy, which specialized in cultivating puppeteers, also set up a course called Mechanic Technology Department. It allowed some puppeteers to learn how to make automatons. At the very least, it allowed puppeteers to understand how an automaton was created. Therefore, the students who enrolled in the Mechanic Technology Department either wanted to understand automatons and improve their skills in crafting, or they wanted to become puppeteers. In addition, in the building that exclusively belonged to the Mechanic Technology Department, it also had professional equipment that could make automatons. There were still many people who took this course. Just as night was about to fall, Wu Yan walked out of the building that exclusively belonged to the Mechanic Technology Department. He had a thoughtful expression on his face the whole time. Because the first-year students in the academy were new talents, the classes were mainly about mechanic magic. There was no division. Therefore, the Mechanic Technology Department was not in the curriculum of the first-year students. Of course, if there were first-year students who wanted to come to the Mechanic Technology Department to sit in, no teacher or professor would stop them. They would even strongly approve of it. It would lay a foundation for the students who wanted to choose the Mechanic Technology Department in the future. Under such circumstances, after Wu Yan finished his class for the day, he went to the Mechanic Technology Department to take a look. The third round of the Path of Demigod mission required 1 million Eve's hearts. And Eve's heart was an essential ingredient for automatons. Without Eve's heart, even if the automaton's performance was extraordinarily high when it was created, without life and intelligence, it was nothing more than a lifeless puppet. Therefore, the Mechanic Technology Department, which specialized in automatons, would definitely have the method to make Eve's heart. Wu Yan had Natsuki, Ikaros, Astria, Nagisa, and Canon head to the student cafeteria for dinner. He took advantage of the free time after school ended to talk to Natsuki. After school, he went to the Mechanic Technology Department to take a look, hoping to get some information. Surprisingly, Wu Yan managed to get some useful information. Inside all the automatons that were used for tactical combat, They were all equipped with Eve's heart, a magic circuit that could bring life and wisdom. Eve was a magic circuit with a high degree of freedom. Not only was it the only magic circuit that could break through the mana imbalance principle, but it also gave the automatons intelligence and turned them into automatons. In the hands of a skilled puppeteer, it could also be used to achieve certain life reactions. For example, breathing, sweating, digestion of food, metabolism, and other functions similar to humans. In other words, the history of mechanic magic started with the invention of Eve's heart. That was the origin of mechanic magic. Eve's heart was the most common and most primitive magic circuit. There were still many mysteries and functions that had yet to be revealed. Therefore, they wanted to assemble Eve's heart from scratch and create it. So far, no one was able to do it. That is to say, it was almost impossible to create Eve's heart. But it would be easy to replicate one. In this era where automatons were widespread, no matter which workshop, there would be a device to replicate Eve's heart. They would also prepare a Eve's heart to replicate this magic circuit. It was precisely because the replication of life had become so simple that automatons could be popularized. Therefore, there were 3 ways to get Eve's heart. 1. The simplest and most violent way, snatch. No matter which automatons were equipped with Eve's heart. Kill the other automatons and dig out the hearts in their bodies to obtain Eve's heart. But 1,000,000 Eve's heart meant that Wu Yan had to kill 1,000,000 automatons. Every automaton was a considerable fighting force. If he killed them carelessly, not to mention whether the automatons' puppeteers would retaliate or alert the various countries, even finding 1,000,000 automatons was not an easy task. In addition, it would definitely take a lot of time. This method was definitely not advisable. 2. The most rational and easiest way, buy. Since there was a workshop that specialized in making automatons and selling them, it wouldn't be strange to sell Eve's heart and use it to make automatons for the puppeteers. However, not to mention how much money it would cost to purchase 1,000,000 Eve's hearts, the reason for purchasing so many Eve's hearts would also attract unwanted attention. No matter where one was, there would always be people who were dissatisfied with the country's policies, similar to terrorists. In this era where magic was popular, it wasn't strange at all that there were terrorists who were puppeteers. Under such circumstances, the sale of automatons and Eve's heart was restricted. If he really wanted to buy so many Eve's hearts, the military or the police would definitely come knocking on his door and interrogate him. Would Wu Yan tell them that he was using them to complete a mission? It would be strange if he didn't get locked up as a suspicious person. Then, there was only one last, most troublesome and most laborious method left. He had to obtain the technology to replicate Eve's heart and create an Eve's heart replication device. Then, he had to get his hands on an Eve's heart and replicate 1,000,000 Eve's heart's heart. The replication technology wasn't that difficult. The technology department already knew about it. Wu Yan just had to find time to come over and learn it. If it's a copy device, he can borrow it from the IT department or he can just take a blueprint and make one himself. Then, he would have to get his hands on an Eve's heart. While Wu Yan was lost in his thoughts, a figure appeared in front of him on one of the side paths of the main street. No. Or rather, it should be said that a figure with a group of young girls appeared there. He wore a mask on his face as usual. The mask could only cover the area above his nose. Other than that, one of his eyes was also covered, while the other was directly exposed to the air. Wearing the academy uniform and a majestic cape, that person led a group of young girls in black formal attire with a curtain hanging in front of them. Like a flash from the darkness, they slowly walked towards the Mechanics and Technology Department's school building. It was Magnus. Seeing Magnus slowly walking towards him, Wu Yan's wine-red eyes smiled. Chapter 1592. Magnus was a fourth-year student of the highest grade in the Valpurgis Royal Mechanical Academy. Magnus had already stayed in the Valpurgis Royal Mechanical Academy for 4 whole years. for years of time allowed Magnus to climb to the top of the academy. Not only did he have the best results in the history of the academy, he was now ranked number 1, the most promising puppet user to become the Demon King. The Walpurgis Royal Mechanical Academy was a place where strength was the only thing that mattered. Therefore, the academy could turn a blind eye to those students who had strength but had poor results in theory. As for those students who were not only strong but also had excellent results, the academy had no reason to not give them good treatment. As the strongest puppet user in the Walpurgis Royal Mechanical Academy and the one with the best results in history, Magnus didn't only have his own house, he also had a dedicated automaton research lab. This research lab also had all sorts of equipment for making automatons. With it, Magnus, who was a student of the mechanical engineering department, would basically stay there unless it was necessary, except during his usual classes. Today, when school was over, Magnus suddenly came to the mechanical engineering department's dormitory. Magnus didn't seem to want others to notice that he was still loitering outside at this time, so he avoided the main street and went through a small path beside the main street. He walked in the direction of the mechanical engineering department. Just as Magnus was about to reach the mechanical engineering department's dormitory, he walked out of the small path and entered the main street. As he walked towards the main door of the dormitory, he suddenly stopped. There was no other reason. Because, in front of the main door of Magnus' destination, there was a uniformed student leaning against a pillar outside the main door of the dormitory. He looked at Magnus with a pair of wine-red eyes that flickered with a scarlet luster in the dark environment. He had a faint smile on his face. This person. Although they had only met once or twice, and he only knew his name a few days ago, Magnus still had a deep impression of him. Because, this person gave Magnus a feeling of threat that he hadn't felt in a long time. Magnus had never had such a feeling ever since he came to the academy. He was a new student who had just entered the school a few days ago. His name was Wu Yan, and he was an expert. Now, this person had once again appeared in front of Magnus. It felt different from during the day. His wine-red eyes seemed even more profound in the darkness. Even his aura became ethereal and mysterious, as if he was a king born in the night. His entire body was filled with an oppressive feeling that made Magnus' heart sink despite it being very casual. It was so deep that it almost seemed to have color, and it seemed to have turned the surroundings into a blood-red oppressive feeling. It seemed that even Magnus' team felt a shiver, and they all jumped in front of Magnus, their bodies emitting traces of mana. Oh! Wu Yan raised an eyebrow when he saw Magnus' squad burning their own mana without the help of a puppet master. The faint smile on his face became even more pronounced. Being able to produce a certain amount of mana without the help of a puppet master, student Magnus. Your automatons seem to be all bandoliers. Wu Yan's words sounded like he was just casually chatting. This caused an indescribable tension to permeate the atmosphere of the entire place. Magnus' squad reacted to this tension. The mana in their bodies surged even more, and they also showed hostility towards Wu Yan. It seems that the extremely short battle from before had caused all 6 girls to be wary of Wu Yan. After all, that was the first time Magnus had been invincible since the birth of the squad. There was no way these automatons wouldn't be afraid of Wu Yan. And the so-called bandoliers referred to the existence of bandoliers. Automatons relied on the mana of their puppeteer to survive. Although they had magic circuits in their bodies, without mana, they were just empty shells. Automatons also couldn't produce mana on their own because the only thing that could produce mana was the bandolier. As for automatons, even if they had life and intelligence because of Eve's heart, they were still just puppets and couldn't produce mana. But the bandoliers were an exception. That was because the body of the Forbidden Doll, which was known as the Forbidden Doll, was made of human parts. They weren't the ashes or remains of the dead, but real living humans. With the bandoliers as components, the bandoliers could rely on the bandoliers to produce mana and provide mana for themselves. They were able to perform better than normal automatons, and to a certain extent, had the ability to break away from their puppeteer. Of course, the amount of mana a bandolier could produce was also very limited. It couldn't be compared to humans with mana, but it was still much stronger than automatons that couldn't break away from their puppeteer. But using the bandolier to create an automaton was already against a magician's code of ethics. It was taboo. Magnus, you're still not the demon king, you can't break away from the International Magic Charter, and the magician's code of ethics. A cruel smile appeared on Wu Yan's face as if it was carved out by a knife. If the people from the Magicians Association find out about this, you'll be sent to the guillotine. Hearing this, Magnus' squad seemed to have been provoked and wanted to make a move. However, just as the girls were about to make their move, Magnus suddenly said something like this. You don't seem to have your automaton with you. The tension in the air instantly multiplied, and the magic power of the girls of the battle squad also surged out even more intensely. Are you trying to kill me to silence me? Wu Yan had a look of disbelief on his face, but in the next second, he smiled calmly. I don't mind, you can try, I see. Without waiting for his squad to react, Magnus nodded nonchalantly. You have an automaton in your squad that can teleport, right? This time, Wu Yan had a surprised look on his face. You saw through it? Magnus didn't answer. Instead, he looked at Wu Yan with his only exposed eye. You're looking for me? I heard that you're not only an excellent puppeteer, you're also a skilled puppeteer. I'm sure you have Eve's heart on you, right? Wu Yan pursed his lips. He didn't want to beat around the bush and he got straight to the point. I want to ask you for Eve's heart. Hearing these words, Magnus lowered his head and pondered for a moment. Then, he took out a stone from his sleeve. Magnus held the stone in his hand and infused mana into it. In the next moment, the stone in Magnus' palm emitted a resplendent light, turning into a dazzling ball of light that floated above his palm. After doing all this, Magnus tossed the glowing sphere to Wu Yan. If there's nothing else, please forgive me for taking my leave. Leaving these words behind, Magnus walked past Wu Yan with firm steps and headed for the tech department's dormitory. Throughout the entire process, Magnus' squad was on high alert. They didn't take their eyes off Wu Yan for even a second. It wasn't until Magnus entered the school dormitory that they jumped up and followed after him. Wu Yan shook his head with a chuckle as he held the glowing orb in his hand. What a loner. Chapter 1593. Valpurgis Royal Mechanical Academy, an empty space deep in the forest. The empty space that was full of potholes due to the practice between Wu Yan and Charlotte had returned to its original state. The messy potholes were all filled up, and the burnt marks were all erased. The empty space was once again flat. Wu Yan was standing in the middle of the empty space with his eyes closed. His hand was stretched out in front of him, and there were ripples of magic on it. In front of Wu Yan's hand that was rippling with magic, there was a human-shaped wooden puppet. It was moving in an uncoordinated manner, twisting, swaying, and staggering like a baby learning to walk. It would not be strange if it fell down at any time. It was not an automaton, but a real wooden puppet made of wood. It was only in its human form. The joints seemed to have been deliberately cut off, and there were unconcealable grooves. Its head was only an oval-shaped piece of wood, and it did not even have a face. When it walked, it was like a skeleton, and there were kacha-kacha sounds. It was an ordinary wooden puppet that did not have a basic magic circuit like Eve's heart. In other words, it did not have self-will, which was a common thing for automatons. It was just a lifeless, dead object. However, such a dead object was now like a baby learning to walk. Amidst the kacha sounds, it twisted its stiff body and walked step by step. If one were to observe carefully, they would discover that there was a layer of dim light around the puppet that was walking crookedly, covering the joints of its body. That layer of dim light. There was no need to think. It could only be what Wu Yan was doing with his eyes closed and his hand facing the puppet. That was an advanced magic called telekinesis. It was a technique that could use magic to interfere with matter and control it with one's thoughts. Now, Wu Yan was using such a technique. He was manipulating the puppet that had no self-control. The reason why he was doing such a thing. Of course, it was because he was practicing magic. Although the automaton had the ability to act on its own and did not need the puppeteer to control its every move, the automaton still had the ability to act on its own. In battle, the puppeteer still needed to control the automaton to a certain extent. Therefore, using telekinesis to control a puppet without self-control could not only train the puppeteer's skills, but because the puppet did not have self-control, it also consumed a lot of magic to control it. It could also improve one's magic to a certain extent. However, it was not easy for a normal puppeteer to make a puppet move. Using magic to control all the joints of the puppet and make it move as one wanted while maintaining balance. Not only did this require a lot of attention to each joint, it also consumed a lot of magic power. The burden was really shocking. Therefore, if one was not an experienced and powerful puppeteer, they would not even be able to make the puppet's hands. And to the students of the academy, this was something that was close to impossible. In the entire academy, there were no more than 10 students who could use telekinesis to make a puppet move. As for being able to make the puppet move according to his will, probably only Magnus was able to do that. Wu Yan only learned how to use telekinesis from Kimberly in a recent class. Using telekinesis to control the puppet and practice magic was something he only started doing this morning. But now, Wu Yan can force the marionette to move according to his will. If others were to know about this, they would be so shocked that their eyes would fall out. Unfortunately, there was someone who wasn't satisfied with this result at all. Control it more smoothly for me. Natsuki frowned as she looked at the puppet that was moving in a crooked manner. You even have the endless knowledge of tactics in your head. You can even use magic at the level of Sigh of the Dragon King and Revive Titan's Hand at will. The magic of telekinesis is only a basic magic to you, right? And you can only use it to this extent? No matter what, I only learned it today. Wu Yan retorted as he continued to release his mana and use telekinesis on the puppet. I'm not a genius. The knowledge in the 103,000 book of witchcraft was also converted into my own memories and directly controlled. This is the first time I've practiced a magic spell by myself. How about you give me a little more time? But it's a fact that you have extraordinary magic knowledge. You also have the infinite martial arts skill that combines mind, technique, and body as one. Mastering telekinesis should be easy, right? That's easy for you to say. Wu Yan opened his eyes and he retracted his mana. The marionette fell to the ground with a thud. Why don't you give it a try? Wu Yan injected a portion of his mana into Natsuki's body. Natsuki glanced at Wu Yan and didn't say anything. She didn't even extend her hand. She just stared at the puppet on the ground and used the mana that Wu Yan sent over. A pair of sapphire blue eyes shone. In the next moment, the joints of the puppet on the ground flashed with light. It stood up with a swooshing sound, grabbed a few rocks on the ground, and tossed them into the air. Peng, his hard feet touched the ground, and with a whoosh, the wooden puppet jumped up and arrived in front of the few stones that had been thrown into the air. Then, he clenched his fists and punched out repeatedly like a gust of wind. Peng 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 peng, the stones were shattered one by one under the puppet's chain of punches. They exploded into gravel. Then, the puppet did a somersault in the gravel and landed on the ground agilely. Then, it posed as if it was a golden rooster. Wu Yan's mouth turned into an O shape. This might be a high-level magic trick in this world, but on Itagami Island, there are plenty of such tricks as well. It shouldn't be hard to master. Natsuki raised her parasol and walked towards the other 4 girls who were resting under the shade of a tree. You should master telekinesis as soon as possible and train your magic tricks. That way, you won't be an amateur and we will be able to fight better. Natsuki, Ikaros, Astria, Nagisa, and Kanon can fight on their own without the puppet master's control. However, if Wu Yan can master his magic tricks better, the girls will be able to fight better. Not to mention other things, just the aspect of the transfer of mana had its own techniques. When the automaton attacked, the puppeteer could adjust his mana to be more violent. This way, the automaton's attack power would be increased. When the automaton was defending itself, the puppeteer could compress and strengthen his mana to harden it a little. That way, the automaton's defense would also increase. If the output of magic power was like the wind, slow and ethereal, it could increase the speed of the automaton. If the output mana was first accumulated and then injected into the automaton, it would significantly increase the explosive power of the automaton. These are all small tricks in magic tricks. Wu Yan realized that magic tricks can increase the combat power of the girls. While he was preparing for the third phase of his demigod path, he paid attention to the classes and studied magic tricks. That's why he's here to train his telekinesis. Otherwise, with Wu Yan's lazy personality, he would rather sleep in the dorm. As expected of a natural witch, a demon killer, who was born with the ability to control space magic. Zhang Lixing muttered to himself. Wu Yan sighed as he looked at the wooden puppet that was still in its golden rooster pose. I still have a long way to go. Chapter 1594. Due to the fact that he had to spend most of his time on PE class, the rest of the class is about the history of magic and so on, he skipped the class and practiced for the whole day. After a full day of practice, Wu Yan was finally able to use his telekinesis to make the puppet move like a real person. This speed could not be said to be slow. Perhaps it was even faster than Magnus when he first started practicing telekinesis, and was able to control puppets to the point where he could move nimbly. However, compared to Natsuki, who could casually use her telekinesis to make the puppet leap in the air and punch a rock, it was still far from being as difficult as it used to be. Na Yu's mastery of psychokinesis magic was something that no one in the entire world could compare to, let alone the academy. And this was under the condition that Natsuki didn't waste any time cultivating her telekinesis. As a natural-born witch, Natsuki's talent in magic could be seen from this. If it wasn't for the fact that Wu Yan had the highest level of magic cultivation, endless knowledge of magic, and the fact that his true ancestor body improved his talent, Wu Yan wouldn't even know if he could use his telekinesis today. After all, as Wu Yan said, he wasn't a genius. In the beginning, he was just an otaku who was waiting to die. When it's almost time for school to end, Wu Yan ended his training. He led the girls who spent the whole day playing under the shade of the trees and walked out of the forest towards the student cafeteria. However, when they passed by a school building, a rustling noise attracted the attention of Wu Yan and the others. What's going on over there? The first to notice the source of the noise was Nagisa, who pointed at a corner of the school building. Everyone followed the direction Nagisa was pointing at. Wu Yan and the others all turned to look at the corner. At the back of the school building, the uniformed students gathered together, forming a human wall. The noise came from the students who were gathered there. Inside the human wall, a cordon tape was pulled open, emptying the area inside the human wall. Disciplinary committee members with armbands on their arms stood guard in front of the cordon tape, as if they were preventing the crime scene from being destroyed. Could it be that a crime has occurred? Even Canon had the same thought. She cowered in fear. No way. Nagisa seemed to be afraid as well. She grabbed Wu Yan's hand. This is an academy, how could a crime happen here? It's not a normal academy, but unfortunately, this isn't a normal academy. Natsuki held her parasol and looked at the human wall. Every student here is a puppeteer. They all have automatons, and have power. Once a fight occurs, it will cause them to go overboard and commit stupid crimes. It's not surprising. Then, Astria pulled on Ikaro's hand and whispered in a whisper. Could it be a dead person over there? A dead person? Dead man. Nagisa and Canon hugged one of Wu Yan's arms. There's no sign of life. Ikaros was the only one. A pair of indigo pupils that stared at the inside of the human wall fluctuated with illusory frames and streams of light that resembled data. It's not a living being. Nagisa and Canon heaved a sigh of relief upon hearing this. Wu Yan mused as he looked at the noisy crowd. Then, he noticed a person. She was standing at the corner of the human wall. She had a little dragon on her head. She had blonde hair and was as beautiful as a fairy. At the same time, this young girl seemed to have been isolated and monopolized that place. She stood there with a straight face. Looking at the interior of the human wall, he seemed to be in a bad mood. Charlotte? Wu Yan thought of something. He sighed and led the girls towards Charlotte. Charlotte noticed the unusual footsteps. She turned her head and looked to the other side. She was stunned for a moment. Why are you here? I'm just passing by. Wu Yan gave her a perfunctory smile. He and the girls looked inside the cordon. Then, they saw something that made Nagisa, Canon, and Astria gasp in shock. Next to the wall of the school building, there was a wreckage that could be called a corpse. The upper body was leaning against the wall, and the lower body was almost completely gone. From this angle, he could clearly see the cross-section of the wreckage. He could even see the abdominal cavity of the wreckage from the cross-section. However, the abdominal cavity wasn't filled with flesh and blood. Instead, the structure was rather complicated. Gears and wires leaked out from the wound. It was none other than an automaton. Looking at the gears and wires that leaked out from the abdominal cavity and the oil that looked like blood, it made the remains of the automaton look even scarier than a human body. On top of that, the lower half of the automaton's face was completely destroyed, leaving behind no trace of its original shape. There was a blood-like liquid scattered around it, as if it had been eaten by some wild beast. It was a spine-chilling sight. The most eye-catching part was the strange wound on the automaton's chest. There was a smooth hole where the heart should have been. It looked like a melted candy. Ugh! Canon and Nagisa turned their heads away, their faces turning green. This. Astria looked like she couldn't bear to see this happen. Who the hell did this? Charlotte gritted her teeth and clenched her fists. That's the work of magic liquor. Magic liquor? It's a pest that hides in the shadows of the academy. It specializes in attacking lone puppeteers and automatons. Charlotte took a deep breath and explained. Every year in the academy, there would be a few puppeteers who would mysteriously go missing, and the automatons of these missing puppeteers would all be destroyed. Was it attacked? As an excellent attack mage officer, Natsuki, who had dealt with countless big and small matters, kept looking at the remains of the automaton and frowned. Besides, since some puppeteers go missing and automatons are destroyed every year, it should be an untargeted and indiscriminate crime, right? That's right. That's it. Charlot nodded hard as he looked at the automaton inside the cordon. Every time Eyebaldi appears, a puppeteer would go missing. It would dig out or eat the automaton's Eve's heart along with its magic circuit. That is why Eyebaldi is the culprit behind this automaton's destruction. Why would it do something like this? Canon hugged Nagisa tightly. She didn't dare to look inside the cordon as she spoke in a sad tone. There's no grudge between us, right? Since there are no grudges between them, there can only be two reasons why they would do such a thing. Wu Yan sneered. Either it's a psychopath or it has a motive. For example, looking at the heart of the automaton, Wu Yan's eyes flashed with a glint. They need the magic circuit that will eat it every time they attack. Clap. 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 When Wu Yan finished his sentence, the crowd applauded just like they did when he finished his fight with Lei Zhen. That's a good judgment. With such a sentence, not far away, the handsome blonde man slowly walked over with a man and a woman. Looking at the handsome man with a kind smile on his face, Charlotte was startled. Felix. It was Felix. Beside Felix were Lei Zhen and Yaya. Chapter 1595. Yo, Seal, you're here too. As Felix walked over, he cast his gaze on Charlotte with a smile. I thought you weren't interested in things that have nothing to do with you. It's too noisy here. That's why I came to take a look. Xia averted her gaze as if she was trying to hide something. She was behaving strangely. It's not that strange, is it? The magic liquor is an indiscriminate criminal, isn't it? Don't you think I might be targeted as well? With Charles's strength, magic liquor definitely wouldn't dare to target you. Felix's signature friendly smile appeared on his face. Even if magic liquors were to find you, I would do my best to protect you. I don't need it. Charlotte was a little flustered. Like a proud little girl, she turned her head away. I'm not weak enough to need someone to protect me. How cold. Felix shrugged helplessly. He looked at Wu Yan, who didn't even look at him as he joked. But that's right, with this expert by your side who can match up to Magnus, you don't need my protection anymore. It's not like that. Hearing this, Charlotte seemed to be even more flustered. I don't have that kind of relationship with him. Why are you in such a hurry to cut ties with me? Wu Yan glanced at Charlotte. No matter what, I've practiced with you and helped you a lot. Aren't you being a little too unreasonable? It's not like that. Charlotte panicked even more, but she didn't explain anything. She looked at Wu Yan apologetically. She changed the topic and said to Felix. By the way, why are you here? Me? Felix smiled lecherously. I'm here to invite you on a date. What? Charlotte's face was dyed with a layer of rosy red. She stuttered. I refuse. I've invited you so many times already. Why don't you consider it? Felix sighed in disappointment. But let's forget about it today. Let me finish my work first. Felix looked at Wu Yan and smiled. Your reasoning just now is very helpful to us. I wonder if you can help us out. Wu Yan pursed his lips and looked at Lei Zhen. Lei Zhen is already helping you, right? Lei Zhen looked up in surprise. You know about my deal with Felix? Deal? Charlotte looked at Lei Zhen. What deal? Nothing. Lei Zhen shook his head. Felix asked me to defeat Magic Liquor in exchange for the right to participate in the night party. The qualification to participate in the night party? Wu Yan raised an eyebrow. He chuckled. I didn't expect the discipline committee of the Walpurgis Academy to have so much power. They can even decide the candidates to participate in the night party. The night party's participation is provided by the night party's executive department. The discipline committee will only recommend the candidates to the executive department collectively. Felix explained. Also, since magic liquors can commit so many crimes and successfully defeat the puppeteers in the academy each time, his strength is at least on par with the 13. As long as we get rid of magic liquor, even without our recommendation, the night party executive department will take note of Lei Zhen's strength. They'll think he can participate in the night party and give him the right to participate, right? Felix patted Lei Zhen's shoulder. I'm just going with the flow. So, magic liquors, if you give this prey to Lei Zhen, we'll be very grateful. Hearing Felix's words, everyone looked at Wu Yan. But under everyone's gaze, Wu Yan smiled. His smile was very sarcastic. Looks like our discipline committee's supervisor doesn't like me either. Such a sudden sentence stunned everyone present on the spot. Why is that? Felix waved his hand and shook his head as if he was panicking. I didn't mean that at all. Then why did you ask me to look for the magic liquor? Wu Yan smirked. Aren't you trying to push me to a dead end? What? Push you to a dead end? Charlotte, Lei Zhen, and Yaya were all stunned. They didn't understand what was going on. Even Felix frowned. I think you misunderstood. I didn't mean that. Although magic liquor, Ibaldi, should be very strong, if it's you. You shouldn't be able to deal with him. Do you really think so? Before Felix could finish, Wu Yan interrupted him. Then, can you please tell me if the academy has found any of the missing students up until now? Yes. The academy has already started searching for the missing students. Felix became serious. But the discipline committee, the guards, and the academy's professors haven't been able to find them. Don't you know that? Wu Yan sighed. That's right, the number of students that magic liquor had ambushed so far has completely disappeared. In other words, not only did magic liquors eat the automaton, but they also hid the puppeteers who might have been killed. Wu Yan looked at Felix mockingly. It's not easy to hide a corpse. If you bury it, there will be soil there. If you dissect it, there will be blood stains on the ground. Moving the corpse is even more troublesome. Many murderers give themselves away when they dispose of the corpse, that's right. Felix's frown deepened. But what does this have to do with me wanting to push you to a dead end? You still don't understand? Wu Yan shook his head and looked straight at Felix. There would definitely be some sort of criminal act that would give the game away. However, up until now, there hasn't been a single trace left behind. If magic liquor was someone from this academy, there's no way he could have done it so perfectly. Unless... Wu Yan's wine-red eyes shone with a clear coldness. The culprit is someone with status, power, and authority in the academy, someone who can do things behind the scenes. For example, the academy's higher-ups, the guards, or disciplinary committee member. His clear words reverberated in the surroundings, causing everyone present to clamor loudly. Charlotte and Lei Zhen were even more shocked. As if they had made an agreement, they cast their gazes on Felix. Felix retracted his usual friendly smile. He stared at Wu Yan in a deadlock. They didn't say anything else. One must admit that Wu Yan's judgment was very accurate. There were so many missing students, but the academy still hadn't found the reason. They didn't even have a single clue, which was very strange. However, if there was an academy behind the scenes that tampered with magic liquor, then it wouldn't be strange at all. Of course, I don't have any evidence. After a while, Wu Yan suddenly changed the topic. He smiled and turned around. However, if I cause trouble for magic liquors, I might become enemies with the disciplinary committee member, the guards, or even the academy's higher-ups. If that's the case, I should be quietly eliminated, right? I don't want to take the risk. Along with this teasing remark that may or may not be true, Wu Yan led the girls and left the scene with clear footsteps, leaving behind a heavy, suspicious, and bewildered atmosphere. It was as if he was telling everyone that the following days wouldn't be peaceful. Chapter 1596. Nighttime, inside the tortoiseshell, no one other than the housemaster noticed the change. Nagisa, Kanon, and Astria were sitting on the bed in their pajamas. They were chatting happily. Natsuki was sitting on a sofa against the wall. She was also wearing pajamas. She was enjoying a cup of black tea with her eyes closed. Ikaros was standing on the other side. She was holding a large watermelon in her arms. She was caressing it while staring blankly at the bathroom. If the students who lived in the same house saw the scene of a lovey-dovey couple in the room, they would be very envious, right? Even though the 5 girls came in all shapes and sizes, they were all beautiful. In a male dormitory like this where problem students and third-rate puppeteers live, a room like this should be heaven, right? As a matter of fact, Wu Yan is quite happy living here. Not only can he watch the girls laugh and play every day, there are only 2 beds in the room. Even if Ikaros and Astria don't need to sleep, if they share a bed, the remaining one will have to sleep with Wu Yan. How could he not be satisfied with this kind of life? Of course, with Natsuki's personality, there was no way she would sleep with Wu Yan in front of so many people. Nagisa also had a strong reaction to sleeping with Wu Yan. Normally, Kanon was the one who slept with Wu Yan. Being surrounded by so many girls and sharing a room was nice, but it wasn't as comfortable as when he was living with Chuju and Mikoto in Fuyuki City. After all, when he was living with Chuju and Mikoto, Wu Yan could sleep with them without any qualms. But here, he had Natsuki, Nagisa, and Kanon, the 3 fresh and delicious girls. Wu Yan couldn't do whatever he liked without any qualms. While the girls were happily doing their own things, the bathroom door that Ikaros was staring at was opened. Then, Wu Yan walked out of the bathroom in loose casual clothes. He was drying his hair with a towel. I'm done. After drying his hair, Wu Yan exhaled in satisfaction. Who's next? Us. Let's do it. Nagisa, Astria, and the shy canon raised their hands. The three of us will shower together. Nagisa, Canon, and Astria got off the bed. They grabbed their clothes and towels and walked towards the bathroom. Clang, suddenly, there was a knock on the window of the room. Ikaro stood up. His indigo pupils were slowly turning into a deep red. Don't worry. Wu Yan raised his hand and stopped Ikaros. There won't be anyone who wants to harm us who would obediently make a sound. Even though he said that, he still had a puzzled expression on his face. He walked to the window, pulled the curtains and opened the window. Almost at the same time, a small pebble came flying from below. It went straight for Wu Yan's face and Wu Yan slapped it away with a loud smack. He caught it with his hand. Ah! It was only at this moment that a small cry of surprise reverberated from below. It caught Wu Yan's attention. In the courtyard of the tortoiseshell dormitory, Charlotte stood there with Sigmund on her head. She looked at Wu Yan with a surprised look on her face. Needless to say, the one who threw a rock at Wu Yan and the one who used the projectile method to hit the window is undoubtedly Charlotte. I say. Wu Yan tossed the stone in his hand. He looked at Charlotte with an annoyed expression. Coming here in the middle of the night to play a prank, do you have a grudge against me? It's not a prank. Charlotte reacted and her eyes darted left and right. She muttered. I just wanted to talk to you about something. Wu Yan paused and turned around. He looked at Natsuki. Natsuki was holding a teacup but her eyes were on Wu Yan. When she saw Wu Yan looking at her, she nodded casually. All right. Wu Yan replied. I'll go down now, sorry to keep you waiting. In the courtyard outside the tortoiseshell dormitory, Wu Yan found Charlotte sitting on the grass and walked over. She saw Wu Yan in loose casual clothes walking towards her. She looked a little uncomfortable but still made room for Wu Yan to sit. I'm really sorry about today. When Wu Yan sat down, Charlotte lowered her head and said something that stunned Wu Yan. What do you need to be sorry about? We've only met once today and exchanged a few words. Can't you think for yourself? The apology from before seemed to have exhausted all the frankness that Charlotte had squeezed out. At this moment, her words had returned to their usual aggressive manner. Didn't I try to distance myself from you in front of Felix? Charlotte turned her head away so that no one could see her expression. I didn't do it on purpose. Are you talking about that? Wu Yan scratched his face and shrugged. I didn't take it to heart. You don't have to apologize, just accept Charles's apology. Sigmund, who was lying on top of Charlotte's head, suddenly said. Because of this, Charles almost didn't eat dinner. Sigmund. Charlotte angrily threatened. Be careful or I'll replace all your chicken with peanuts tomorrow. Charlotte inadvertently met Wu Yan's eyes. She looked like she wanted to say something but stopped herself. Wu Yan got confused when he saw Charlotte acting like this. What's wrong? No. Nothing. Do you think I'll believe you? Aren't you a little too dishonest? That's not true. After retorting almost reflexively, Charlotte hesitated for a moment and asked. Today, you said that there's someone in the Conduct and Discipline Committee who helped Magic Liquor clean up the aftermath and is in cahoots with Magic Liquor, right? What I'm trying to say is that the Academy's higher-ups, the guards, and the Disciplinary Committee's Disciplinary Committee are all in cahoots with Magic Liquor. Or rather, Magic Liquor is among them. Wu Yan looked at Charlotte as if he could see through her thoughts. I didn't specifically designate them as the Discipline Committee. In other words, the Conduct and Discipline Committee member is indeed suspected to be in cahoots with Magic Liquor, or Magic Liquor is hiding in the Conduct and Discipline Committee member. Charlotte's pretty face was instantly covered with a layer of darkness. Am I right? Those missing students disappeared too thoroughly. It's too unnatural. Wu Yan didn't answer directly. He looked at the night sky and changed the topic. Just like what we said during the day, even if the corpses were destroyed, there would definitely be some traces left behind. However, they seem to have completely disappeared from the face of the earth. After such a long time, the Academy still hasn't found anything. It doesn't matter if those missing students are alive or dead. Since there isn't a single trace left behind, it means that they were either transferred out of the Academy or hidden in a place that ordinary students are not allowed to enter. Charlotte could feel Wu Yan's voice turning colder by the second. But you know the situation in the Academy. It's like a cage. Students have to register when they leave. Automatons can't even leave. They'll be attacked the moment they leave. In such a cage, if magic liquor really transferred the missing students out of the Academy, then it must have been approved by a certain powerful existence or organization in the Academy. Wu Yan turned around and looked at Charlotte. If the missing students are still in the Academy, then wouldn't the only place where they can hide and not be discovered by others be the restricted areas that are strictly regulated by the Academy? If that's the case, if you want to hide them, you have to get the approval of those powerful existences in the Academy, right? Charlotte fell silent. Chapter 1597. It was too clean. All clues related to the magic liquor seemed to have been purposely erased. Other than the remains of the automaton, nothing else was left behind. The Valpurgis Royal Mechanic Academy was the best academy in the world of magic. If the Kaibal candy was really just a rat hiding in the shadows, how could the Academy not find any traces of it until now? To be able to commit a crime in the highest school in the magic world so cleanly, it was like successfully escaping from a police station without leaving behind a single trace of blood. It was as if the victim had vanished from the face of the earth and disappeared without a trace. This, in itself, was already a suspicious point. And if the Academy's authorities were behind this, then it would explain why the crime was so clean. No matter if the missing students were alive or dead, they were destined to be shameful. Then, it was not possible to move the missing students out of this cage-like academy. If they were to be hidden in the academy, they would have to be in the most secretive place that outsiders could not find. But if the academy's higher-ups, the guards of the garrison, and the members of the discipline committee were serious about investigating the case, where in this academy could they not be specially approved to enter? The only explanation was that this so-called investigation was just for show. Therefore, the academy's higher-ups, the guards of the garrison, and the members of the discipline committee were very likely to be in cahoots with the magic liquor. Or perhaps, the magic liquor, Kaibal candy, was hiding among the existences who held real power in the academy. If they were to go against the magic liquor, Kaibal candy, it would mean that they would have to go against these beings as well. As a student, without any backup, who could contend against these existences? That would instead be targeted by these existences, wouldn't it? Even if they did find the magic liquor, Kaibal candy, wouldn't they be fooled by the other party using their authority? Realizing this, Charlotte couldn't help but feel a chill in her heart. Doesn't that mean that regardless of whether we find the Kaibal candy or not, he won't suffer the punishment that he deserves? You're being too pessimistic. Wu Yan shook his head. Perhaps the Kaibal candy is indeed hiding in those institutions with real power in the academy, but not everyone is on his side. Otherwise, this academy would be too scary. You mean? Charlotte said with uncertainty. If we can find out who the magic liquor is, will the authorities that have nothing to do with the magic liquor punish him? The premise is, although it's not everything, but if you really want to make an enemy out of Kaibal candy, you must be mentally prepared to stand against someone with real power. Looking at Charlotte's eyes that gradually turned firm, Wu Yan poured a bucket of cold water on her. But Charlotte, if you want to find the magic liquor, I advise you not to. Charlotte's gaze that had just become firm instantly froze and was replaced with a blank look. Why? Don't you realize it? Wu Yan met Charlotte's confused gaze and threw out such a sentence like a sudden clap of thunder. You are also one of the suspects of the magic liquor. What? Charlotte's delicate body trembled as she angrily shouted. How could I be that kind of criminal? Only you would think so. Faced with Charlotte's rage, Wu Yan coldly and mercilessly threw out words that made Charlotte's delicate body tremble. Every time the Kaibal candy attacked, the attacked automaton would be left with scars as if the candy had been licked and melted. And Charlotte, your automaton, Sigmund's magic, seems to be able to do the same thing, right? This. Charlotte seemed like she wanted to explain something, but Wu Yan stopped her with a sentence. Perhaps you want to say that there must be a magic trick that can achieve the same effect, but you've forgotten something else. The automaton attacked by the magic liquor will have its magic circuit dug out. Wu Yan sighed. And if someone finds a large number of magic circuits in your dorm room, guess what will happen to you? Charlotte's pretty face turned pale in an instant. Even Sigmund's eyes were wide open, and his expression was ferocious. Rumor has it that Count Baleo, who is also your father, is a famous collector of automaton. There are many automatons in his mansion and they live a family life together with Count Baleo's family. Looking at Charlotte's pale face, Wu Yan raised his head and looked at the night sky. His voice drilled into Charlotte's ears one by one. However, one day, an extremely noble boy came to Count Baleo's house as a guest. The boy was bitten by a small dog-shaped automaton. Because of that, Count Baleo was severely condemned by the royal family. His title was stripped, his territory was reclaimed, and all the automaton that was like a family were disintegrated. The magic circuits of the disintegrated automaton. Wu Yan closed his eyes. Charlotte, you must have bought them back with your scholarship and placed them in your dorm room, right? I. Charlotte's face was drained of blood. Even her lips had turned pale. She could no longer utter a complete sentence. You have the magic that can cause a wound that looks like a candy that was licked and melted, and your dormitory room is full of magic circuits. Tell me, if someone sees all this, will they still believe that you are not a magic liquor, Kaibal candy? Wu Yan glanced at Charlotte. If the real magic liquor knows about all of this and is a member of the authorities in the academy that you're about to go up against, even if it's black, they can turn it into white and push all the blame onto you. What should you do then? What should I do? You can only defend yourself helplessly. Then, you'll be treated as a magic liquor and sent to prison, right? Charlotte collapsed on the ground. She didn't have the time to ask Wu Yan how he knew about the magic circuits in her room. Her mind was completely blank. So, that's why you spread the rumor that the magic liquor is a member of the authorities in the academy in front of everyone, right? Sigmund, who was lying on top of Charlotte's head, laughed bitterly. I'm sorry to have troubled you. You said it's just a rumor. It's just a rumor without evidence. If the magic circuits in Charlotte's room are discovered, then no matter how reasonable this rumor is, it will be covered by irrefutable evidence. No one will doubt it. Wu Yan shook his head and stood up. Charlotte, I hope you can think about it before you act. Don't get yourself into trouble in the end. Also, I'll give you a piece of advice. Wu Yan turned around and walked towards the dorm room. People who try their best to get close to you, compared to pure kindness, I think they have a purpose. Leaving those words behind, Wu Yan walked into the dormitory, leaving Charlotte alone. She sat limply on the floor, she looked so lonely. Chapter 1598. Walpurgis Academy, Griffin Hut. This was a female dormitory. Moreover, it was a dormitory that only the top-ranked female students in the academy had the right to live in. Compared to the tortoise hut that looked like a hotel, the Griffin Hut looked like a villa. Not only was there a lawn in front of the dormitory, there was also an elaborate staircase and a courtyard paved with shiny stone bricks. When one arrived at the Griffin Hut from the main street, one could see the stone paths that led to the Griffin Hut. The stone paths were connected to the elaborate staircase. After walking up the staircase and through the courtyard, one could reach the Griffin Hut's female dormitory. In this quiet night, in a room in the Griffin Hut's female dormitory, Charlotte sat alone on her bed. She hugged her knees and buried her head. She didn't even turn on the lights. The moonlight shone in through the window and scattered on Charlotte's body, making her figure look very sad and beautiful. Charlotte didn't have the same achievements as Magnus. Therefore, Charlotte didn't have the means to have a private residence and research room. However, the Griffin Hut's female dormitory was very luxurious for a student. Just the space alone was more than double the size of the Tortoise Hut. There were also 2 double beds. However, there was a large table that was enough for 4 people to use at the same time. There was also a study table and a bookshelf that looked like a library. There were even 2 spacious and comfortable sofas. It was too much of a waste for a single person to live in such a room. However, the reason why Charlotte lived alone and didn't have a roommate was because Charlotte often got into trouble. She alienated others and didn't get close to anyone. This was why no one lived with her. Otherwise, the students wouldn't be so scared when they saw Charlotte. They would escape and make way for her in fear. And it was also because Charlotte often got into trouble. She alienated others and used violence whenever she encountered something that didn't go her way. This was why she had the code name Tyrant Rex and was also known as T-Rex. Her notoriety spread far and wide. Therefore, if the students in the academy saw Charlotte, who was known as T-Rex, in such a weak state, they would be shocked. Wouldn't it be very hard to believe? On the other side of the bed, Sigmund looked at Charlotte quietly without saying a word. Charlotte raised her head slightly. His gaze stopped at a corner of the room. Over there was a wooden cabinet. Charlotte took a deep breath and got off the bed. She walked to the cabinet, squatted down, and slowly opened it. The next moment, the scene in the cupboard was exposed to the air. Inside, there were many small culture tanks that contained heart-like things. Next to the small culture tank that contained the heart-like object, there was also a device. Wires extended from the device and connected to the small culture tank, and the device was operating. The heart-like things in the culture tanks were none other than Eve's heart. It was also the magic circuit of the family-like automaton that Charlotte bought from the outside one by one with her scholarship. Count Bilo's family used to be the pride of the United Kingdom for their ingenious magic. But that was already a thing of the past. Just like what Wu Yan said, one of Count Bilo's dog-like automaton bit a boy of noble status. As a result, Charlotte's father was severely condemned by the royal family. Even his title was stripped away and his territory was taken back. As for the automaton that used to be her family, with the exception of Sigmund, all of them suffered the fate of disintegration. Now, the hearts of the automaton that suffered the fate of disintegration were being bought back by Charlotte one by one with her scholarship. But now, these hearts might very well cause Charlotte to be treated as a magic liquor, Cabalcandy. Plus, Sigmund's demon sword was able to cause the candy to melt. With these 2 reasons added together, even if Charlotte wanted to prove her innocence, there was no way she could do so. After all, a magic liquor, Cabalcandy, might very well be one of those existences that held real power in the academy. Compared to Charlotte, who hated others, often got into trouble, didn't interact with others, and stubbornly used violence, causing harm to many students, the words of those high and mighty existences were more likely to gain the trust of others. Besides, they were existences that held real power. They could explain themselves however they wanted, they could even fabricate some false evidence. By that time, no one in the academy would believe that Charlotte wasn't a magic liquor, Cabalcandy, right? I just want to live with my family again. Looking at the rows of magic circuits in the cabinet, Charlotte squeezed out some bitter words as if she was complaining. Could it be that this is also wrong? The one at fault isn't you, Seal. Sigmund flew to Charlotte's side and lifted his small dragon head to look at her. His old and steady voice brought an indescribable sense of security. However, Wu Yan's words are also reasonable. If you continue like this, you might be used as a scapegoat by the real magic liquor, Cabalcandy. No. That won't happen. Charlotte bit her lips and shook her head in disbelief. Although I don't know how he found out about these magic circuits, but other than him, no one else knows about this. The magic liquor, Cabalcandy, wouldn't know either. As long as I'm not discovered, I won't be used. There was some truth in this statement. Who asked Charlotte to never get close to anyone? She had never even had a friendly conversation with anyone before. People feared Charlotte like a tiger. They didn't even want to see her, so how could they know about the existence of these magic circuits? However, it was a pity that this time, Sigmund remained silent, which made Charlotte feel uneasy. Did you think of something? Sigmund didn't answer immediately. Instead, after a moment of silence, he said such a sentence. Didn't Wu Yan give you a piece of advice? Advice? Charlotte was stunned. Then, she was confused. Is it the one that says, compared to pure kindness, I feel that those who try their best to get close to you have ulterior motives? After saying that, Charlotte couldn't help but laugh. How can that be? Other than that guy, who else would be willing to get close to me? As she spoke, Charlotte's pretty face suddenly froze. Try their best to get close to me? Isn't there? In her memory, a face flashed across Charlotte's mind. At the same time, a thought that she would never consider flashed across her mind. Charlotte's delicate body trembled slightly. No. It can't be. Charlotte's eyes trembled even more intensely. She shook her head in disbelief as if she had lost all her strength. No. It can't be him. Sigmund seemed to have thought of the same thing as Charlotte. He grabbed Charlotte's hand with his dragon claw. Calm down. Seal. The pain from her hand made Charlotte's confused mind start working again. However, her face was still full of disbelief, but there was also a faint trace of panic. Sigmund. As if looking for someone to rely on, Charlotte hugged Sigmund tightly. She closed her eyes tightly as if she didn't dare to face reality. That should be impossible, right? I don't know. Sigmund said in a deep voice. However, we can't rule out this possibility. It depends on which side you choose to believe. Which side do I believe? That's right. That's right. Sigmund nodded vigorously. One side is the person who spared no effort to practice with you, eat with you, chat with you, and give you advice. The other side is the person who tried his best to get close to you every day. He helped you settle a lot of problems for you, but his motives are unclear. Which side are you willing to believe? Hearing this, Charlotte lowered her head so that no one could see her expression. Chapter 1599. The next morning. On the noisy main street, Charlotte brought Sigmund, who was standing on her shoulder, to the student cafeteria. Along the way, the students acted as if they had seen the god of plague. They opened up a path in a panic, making the places that Charlotte passed by become like a ferocious tiger on the streets, creating chaos. Looking at this scene, Charlotte was expressionless on the surface, but she smiled bitterly in her heart. That's right, Charlotte, who was known as the Tyrannosaurus, was such an existence that people wanted to avoid. Because Charlotte had done a lot of extreme things. For example, when school started, Charlotte sent 5 senior students who tried to touch her body to the hospital. For example, when Charlotte was taking a shower, her roommate barged in and was pushed out of the window by Charlotte. For example, because she didn't want to touch a frog, she destroyed the entire anatomy laboratory. Another example would be if they provoked a wasp and Charlotte burned down the entire courtyard. When these extreme actions spread, the result was obvious. All of them became the reason why the landing code name, Tyrannosaurus, appeared. However, that was only because Charlotte's behavior was too clumsy. She didn't do it on purpose. However, these actions made Charlotte offend people unknowingly. This was also a fact. Therefore, no one was willing to get close to Charlotte, and no one was willing to get close to Charlotte. Or rather, Wu Yan letting Charlotte lead the way and paying for a meal out of Charlotte's own pocket, that's something that's truly shocking. But that was also because Wu Yan was a freshman and didn't know about Charlotte's matters. That was why he didn't hesitate to get close to Charlotte. Of course, this was what Charlotte thought. As for Charlotte herself, she didn't mind at all that she was being shunned. After all, almost all the students in this school wanted to get the throne of the Devil King. They were all people who wanted to compete with Charlotte for the Devil King position. If one person. Charlotte didn't have too many scruples. It wasn't a bad thing not to make friends with the enemy. Unfortunately, there were advantages and disadvantages to isolating oneself. Some small people would definitely do a lot of tricks behind the scenes. For example, rummaging through Charlotte's cupboard. For example, hiding Charlotte's things. This kind of prank was something that Charlotte used to encounter almost every day. Perhaps it was because of this. If Charlotte had been slandered as a "Kaibal candy," most people would have agreed with it. Not only because many people hated Charlotte, but because everyone hated Charlotte, others could use this as an excuse to fabricate facts. For example, he had attacked the students in the academy because he held a grudge against the students who hated him. Thinking about it, there should be quite a few people who would believe it, right? With such a bitter mood, Charlotte walked expressionlessly on the main street that almost caused chaos and headed towards the student cafeteria. "Yo! Charles!" At this moment, a clear voice echoed from behind Charlotte. While the others were trying their best to avoid him, a handsome man with blonde hair, wearing a glove that represented the qualification to attend the night meeting, and an armband that represented the discipline committee on his arm, with a friendly smile on his face, slowly walked towards Charlotte. Felix. Looking at the only person who didn't reject her and was walking towards her, Charlotte seemed to be a little nervous and looked like she wanted to escape. "You're still alone as always." Felix looked around and said with a smile. "What? You're not with Mr. Wu Yan? Why do I have to be with him?" Charlotte turned her head away. "Our relationship isn't good enough for us to have breakfast together in the morning." "Is that so?" Felix heaved a sigh of relief. "That's great. I thought you two had a good relationship." "I almost gave up, or give up." Charlotte's gaze drifted uncomfortably. "Or give up on what?" "Well, who knows?" Felix looked at Charlotte meaningfully and revealed a lecherous smile. "Well, let's not talk about this anymore. Charles, why don't you give me a chance today and go on a date with me?" "A date?" Charlotte pursed her lips and looked up at Felix with a serious expression. "Why does it have to be me?" Hearing this, Felix paused for a moment before his eyes lit up. In the past, when Felix asked Charlotte out on a date, Charlotte would refuse without hesitation. But today, Charlotte asked for the reason. Didn't this mean that Felix had a chance? Isn't it obvious? At that moment, Felix looked at Charlotte with some enthusiasm and said half jokingly and half seriously, "Don't worry. Isn't it normal to pursue a girl as beautiful as you? There are plenty of girls in the academy who are prettier than me." Charlotte's cheeks were slightly red, but she still said seriously to Felix, "They're not as annoying as me, and you're so popular among the girls. If you go on a date with them, they should be happy, right? We've known each other for a long time. You should know me more or less, right?" Felix stopped smiling and looked straight at Charlotte. "Do you think I would casually ask someone on a date because of this? Is that so?" Charlotte blushed even more when Felix looked directly at her. She quickly averted her gaze and said shyly, Is that so, if it's just for a while? I don't mind accompanying you for a while." "Really?" Felix revealed a dazzling smile that dazzled the girls around him. "That's great. Please have breakfast with me." That's it." Charlotte turned around and walked towards the student cafeteria in a panic. Only then did Felix straighten his collar. A heartfelt smile appeared on his face as he followed Charlotte's footsteps. On the way to the student cafeteria, Felix had been actively talking to Charlotte. Charlotte, on the other hand, seemed a little nervous, replying intermittently like a little girl. This made many of Felix's fans grit their teeth and look at Charlotte with unfriendly gazes. However, Charlotte completely ignored him. Not long after, she suddenly said such a sentence. "Felix, there's something I want to ask of you." "Something?" Felix paused for a moment before smiling helplessly. "I understand. So that's why you were willing to accept my invitation today." "I'm sorry." Charlotte lowered her head. "But I can only ask for your help." "That's an honor." Felix shrugged. Just say it, Charles. If I can help you, I'll do my best. Is that so? Charlotte's eyes flashed with a complicated expression. She looked up at Felix. Then, can I trouble you to find time to let me see the automaton that was eaten by the Cavalcanti? The automaton that was eaten by the Cavalcanti? Felix paused and frowned. Why do you want to see the automaton? It's like this. Charlotte hesitated for a moment before replying. My friend has a way to extract the last scene the automaton saw in the short period of time before it was destroyed from the broken automaton. Extract the last scene the automaton saw before it was destroyed? Felix's eyes narrowed. That friend of yours is Mr. Wu Yan, right? Is this true? I don't know. I don't know, but that guy said. Charlotte clenched her fists. If this is true, then we'll be able to see the true face of the Kaibal candy. So, Felix. Charlotte said pleadingly. The automaton should still be in the hands of the discipline committee, right? Can you give us some time to take a look at that automaton? This. Felix seemed to be in a difficult position. But that automaton is also a very important piece of evidence. If it's accidentally destroyed, we will be accompanied by the disciplinary committee. Charlotte's determined eyes were exposed to Felix's vision. Please, Felix. This is the only way to find the Kaibal candy right now. If we apply for it ourselves, we don't know how many procedures we'll have to go through, and it'll take a long time as well. I can only trouble you. Felix closed his eyes and fell silent. All right. After a long time, Felix nodded. I will go and prepare. I will inform you when I'm ready. Thank you. Charlotte thanked Felix, relieved. Felix smiled when he saw the relieved Charlotte. His smile was very pleasant. Chapter 1600. Walpurgis Royal Mecca Academy, Central Great Hall. On the second floor of the Central Lecture Hall, there was a rather large area. This area was made up of the Conduct and Discipline Committee's office, the Conduct and Discipline Committee's waiting room, and the Conduct and Discipline Committee's meeting room. In other words, the Conduct and Discipline Committee's headquarters was set up on the second floor of the Central Lecture Hall. From the location of the Conduct and Discipline Committee's headquarters, it could be seen just how important the Conduct and Discipline Committee was in the Academy. Although this was a group that the students could freely join, and none of the Academy's higher-ups were involved in the affairs, the Conduct and Discipline Committee was still an important existence in maintaining the Academy's discipline. Even if there were no students, the Academy wouldn't neglect them. Using the second floor of the Central Lecture Hall as the Conduct and Discipline Committee's headquarters showed just how much the Academy valued and acknowledged the Conduct and Discipline Committee. Under these circumstances, the Conduct and Discipline Committee couldn't be said to be able to cover the sky with one hand, but they did have some privileges given by the Academy. For example, incidents such as Cavalcanti, which led to the disappearance of the puppeteer students and the destruction of the automaton, were all handled by the disciplinary committee. Not the guards. Of course, if it was proven that the Conduct and Discipline Committee killed the missing puppeteer, then the guards would have no choice but to move out. At night, the lights in the Central Lecture Hall were almost completely extinguished, causing the entire place to be shrouded in darkness. But on the second floor of the Central Lecture Hall, in the Conduct and Discipline Committee's office, Felix was sitting in front of his desk with a rare serious expression, flipping through a document in his hand. It was already the middle of the night, but Felix was still working in his office. It had to be said. He was indeed very hard-working. A group of Conduct and Discipline Committee members who came to the office and saw Felix working in his office didn't find it strange. They greeted him and left. Thinking about it, Felix often worked until the middle of the night. Actually, the Conduct and Discipline Committee members all knew. Almost. Every night, Felix would work until the wee hours of the morning before leaving his office and returning to his dorm. But today, the Conduct and Discipline Committee members did not see that Felix was only halfway through his work when he left his office and walked in another direction on the second floor of the Central Lecture Hall. After passing through a long corridor and turning one corner after another, Felix soon arrived in front of a door. He extended his hand and pushed it open. Suddenly, a slightly messy room was exposed under the light of the corridor. The main color of the room was a light gray. Even at night, the light inside the room was much dimmer than the surrounding environment. There were piles of miscellaneous items, books, machines, and some miscellaneous items that looked like goods. Everything was there. A foreign object was placed on a table in this somewhat messy room. It looked like a human skeleton, but it was actually a humanoid mechanical body made of metal. However, this humanoid metallic mechanical body was extremely damaged. The lower half of the body below the thighs had almost completely disappeared, leaving behind a section where one could clearly see the abdominal cavity. Many gears and wires leaked out from the section, and the lower half of the face was completely destroyed, leaving behind no trace of its original shape. There was a hideous hole where the humanoid metallic mechanical body's heart should be. It was the automaton that had been eaten by the Cabalcandi. At this moment, this broken automaton was lying on the table by the wall of the room. Its eyes were looking at the ceiling as if it was silently accusing the Cabalcandi of its crimes. Coupled with the hideous hole where its heart should be and its broken body, in the dark night, anyone who saw it would feel their scalp tingle. If a timid girl saw this scene, she would probably faint right away, right? Felix, on the other hand, stared closely at the broken automaton. He turned around, closed the door, and walked to the front of the table. Looking at the terrifying automaton lying on the table, Felix's eyes flickered slightly. Is it possible to extract the last scene the automaton saw before it was destroyed? If there really was such a method, then the culprit who attacked the automaton and caused the destruction of the automaton would be found. If that's the case, the Cabalcandi will have nowhere to hide, right? Phew. Felix exhaled softly. His eyes seemed to have focused on the broken automaton. Although I don't know if it's real or not, but whether it's real or fake, as long as there's a slight possibility, then, Felix smiled. However, that smile no longer had the friendliness and calmness it used to have. Instead, it seemed a bit twisted. I absolutely can't let anyone touch this automaton. After saying that, Felix grabbed the broken automaton by its neck and lifted it up, Walpurgis Royal Tactical Academy, deep within a forest. Bang! Felix threw the broken automaton on the ground, grabbed a torch, and threw it on the broken automaton. Phew! In the next moment, the torch burned on the automaton's body, gradually burning the already broken automaton to ashes. Felix stared closely at the burning automaton. The light from the fire illuminated his handsome face, but it also made Felix seem much more ruthless. After an unknown amount of time, the burning flames gradually weakened until they were completely extinguished. The dilapidated automaton had all turned into ashes. Felix took out a bag and swept all the ashes into it. Then, he picked up the small piece of ground that was burned black by the flames. No. He didn't pick up the ground. It was a stone slab that was spread on the ground. After throwing the stone slab in his hand into the bag, Felix laughed again. This time, it was an extremely sarcastic laugh. Burning this automaton should attract a lot of suspicion, right? The Cabalcandi might very well be in cahoots with those institutions with real power in the academy. Or perhaps, the Cabalcandi was a part of those institutions. This was Wu Yan's declaration in front of all the students. Now that the automaton under the custody of the Discipline and Conduct Committee has disappeared, and it disappeared when Charlotte asked Felix to arrange it for her to take a look at it, be it Wu Yan or Charlotte, both of them would have their suspicions. But so what if they're suspicious? Felix sneered. Will Charles think I'm the one who did it? Will others think I did it? It had to be said that Felix had a good reputation in this academy. Even if burning the automaton at this juncture would attract unnecessary suspicion, it only made Wu Yan's declaration a little more convincing. No one would suspect him, Felix, of doing it. Crack, however, just as Felix was thinking that, a small sound came from behind him. Chapter 1601. Who is it? Felix was shocked. He quickly turned his head and looked behind him. Reading the latest novel. But when he did, he was dumbfounded. Sure enough, it's you, accompanied by a sorrowful voice. A young lady with long golden hair that was dazzling even in the night slowly walked out from the dark forest. She had a small dragon on her shoulder and was exposed under the moonlight. You. Felix's expression changed when he saw the young girl walking out of the forest. Charles. The person who had come was none other than Charlotte. Raising her head, Charlotte's gaze met Felix's handsome face. A miserable smile appeared on her face. How I wish it wasn't you, Felix reacted when he heard Charlotte's sorrowful words. He looked at Charlotte with sincere eyes. Charles, please calm down. This is a misunderstanding. Felix's voice became softer and softer. It was for no other reason than the tears that flowed from Charlotte's crystal-clear eyes. Why, is it you, Charles? Felix clenched his teeth and said with some pain. Don't tell me you don't believe me. Charlotte smiled. Charlotte laughed, and it was a masochistic laugh. Felix, do you still not understand? Understand? Felix's face was full of confusion. He had a bad feeling in his heart. Understand what? Seeing that Felix was still putting on an act, Charlotte wiped away the tears on her cheeks. With a trembling voice, she said something that made Felix's heart beat faster. What do you mean by being able to extract the scene that the automaton saw before it was destroyed? That's all fake, from the moment you brought the automaton out to the moment you burned it. The entire process. I saw everything with my own eyes. You. Felix was speechless. You set a trap to lure me? No. You're the one who set a trap to frame me. Charlotte's eyes were wet once again, but she met Felix's gaze. It was as if she had forced the words out of her mouth. I said it. Am I right? Magic liquor, Cabalcandy, this time. Felix didn't explain anymore. In the space that became deathly silent, all of Felix's expressions disappeared, and he stared at Charlotte. Then, he stopped. He suddenly smiled. That really surprised me. With the same kind smile on his face, Felix nodded in admiration. I didn't expect you to suspect me and set a trap for me. I've said it before. You're the one who set the trap. Charlotte bit her lips as if she was holding back her tears. Her voice was hoarse. Felix, the reason why you're so close to me and try your best to invite me on a date every time is only because Sigmund's magic sword is very similar to the candy-melting scar you left behind when you committed the crime, isn't it? The reason Felix tried his best to get close to Charlotte wasn't because he had feelings for her. It was because the magic effects left behind by the two were too similar. In other words, Felix only got close to Charlotte after carefully preparing a trap. I often offended people in the academy and often attracted small tricks and pranks from others. But every time, it was you, the head of the discipline committee, who helped me deal with the aftermath and took care of me. Charlotte almost bit her lips until they bled, but she still raised her voice and shouted. But that was also to get close to me, right? In other words, everything Felix said to Charlotte, the care he showed her, the gentleness he showed her, everything was fake. Felix was only trying to pin his crimes on Charlotte. Kill Charlotte as a magic liquor, Cabalcandy, and deceive the world. I didn't set the trap for you. Charlotte finally couldn't help but cry again. It's you. You set the trap for me, you planned to frame me, haha. Ha 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 ha. Seeing Charlotte cry, Felix covered his face with one hand and laughed out loud, as if he couldn't hold it in any longer. Shocking, truly shocking. I didn't think that someone as naive as you would be able to see through my tricks. I thought you only knew how to daydream, wanting to become the demon king by hook or by crook while obediently accepting the hypocritical favors of the enemy. Enemy. Charlotte took a step back as if she was hit by something. In other words, you framed me because you wanted to become the demon king and eliminate an opponent? No, no, no. You've misunderstood me. I've never thought of becoming a magic candy just to eliminate an opponent. The smile on Felix's face was still as cordial as before, but in the eyes of others, that smile was even more terrifying than ferocious. My automaton is capable of transforming the magic circuits that I've eaten into my own and using the magic of other automatons that I've eaten. Magic that allows you to use other automatons that you've eaten? Charlotte covered her mouth. Could it be that you're preparing for the night meeting? Correct. Felix's lips slowly curled up. In order to win in the night meeting, of course I have to prepare more magic tricks, just for something like this. Charlotte's delicate body trembled. Just for something like this, you actually destroyed so many automatons? In order to become the Demon King, no matter who stands in your way, you must defeat them. No matter what method you use, you must achieve your goal. Felix looked at Charlotte mockingly. Hasn't this always been your point of view? That's right. Charlotte wanted to become the Demon King and revive Count Bilo's family. She wanted to find all her family members and find that warm family of the past once again. This was Charlotte's goal of becoming the Demon King. In order to achieve this goal, Charlotte alienated the students in the academy who were destined to be her enemies and who also had the goal of becoming the Demon King. She also secretly decided that no matter who stood in her way, she would eliminate them. Therefore, strictly speaking, Felix's words were indeed correct. I really like you. I really like your point of view because I have the same idea. Felix closed his eyes as if intoxicated. In order to become the Demon King, any method must be used. If I can become the king of this magic world, then what's the point of sacrificing a few puppeteers and a few automatons? But I can't stand your naivety. Felix opened his eyes forcefully. His eyes were filled with endless coldness. You've already decided to defeat everyone in your way to obtain everything, but until now, you haven't destroyed even a single automaton. You have magic that can destroy everything, but you still show mercy every time. How noble, so noble that I want to vomit. Automatons aren't tools. Charlotte shouted in agitation. They have their own lives. In the past, Charlotte used to live with the automaton like her family. Now, in order to reclaim her family members who had been disintegrated, Charlotte had been trying her best to find the hearts of her family members. The reason why Charlotte tried so hard to find the K-Balcony was because she didn't see the automaton as a tool. Unfortunately, such a point of view only made Felix laugh out loud again. That's why I say I hate your naivety, whether it's in the way you deal with people, with the automatons, or with the current situation. You're already suspecting me, yet you still came here alone. You didn't even raise your guard before me, how laughable. After saying that, a spear-like ice arrow suddenly shot out from the forest behind Felix and shot towards the stunned Charlotte. Chapter 1602. Whoosh. When such a sharp sound pierced through the air above the forest, Charlotte saw a ray of light in an instant. It was the reflection of moonlight. The moonlight was emitted by the crystal-clear surface of an arrow made of ice. Like an arrow, a ferocious ice spear burst out from the depths of the dark forest, brushed past Felix's shoulder, and mercilessly shot towards Charlotte's forehead, who didn't react at all. Charles. Just as the arrow-like ice spear was about to hit Charlotte's forehead, Sigmund growled and woke her up. At that moment, Charlotte hurriedly threw herself to the ground beside her without caring about her image. Almost at the same time as Charlotte pounced to the side, the ice spear swept past her original position and landed on a tree behind her original position. Bang! Instantly, the tree that seemed to have a long history was pierced through in an extremely straightforward manner, piercing a hole the size of a human head. Looking at the splinters of wood splashing from the tree trunk in the hideous hole, Charlotte's pretty face turned pale at the thought of how she was almost hit in the head by an attack that could cause such damage. If she hadn't dodged just now, Charlotte would have definitely died. Whoosh! Just as Charlotte's heart was still fluttering with fear, another piercing sound rang out. Shortly after, an afterimage appeared. It suddenly appeared in front of Charlotte. Before Charlotte could raise her head to see the true face of the afterimage, another afterimage lashed out like a whip from the body of the afterimage. It was a long-handled greatsword that flickered with a cold arc of light. The afterimage that appeared in front of Charlotte held a long-handled greatsword in its hand, and with a whistling sound, it slammed toward Charlotte. Bang! The next moment, a muffled sound rang out. That was the sound of the long-handled greatsword hitting something. However, it wasn't Charlotte who was hit. Instead, it was to protect Charlotte. Sigmund leaped up from Charlotte's body and blocked the long-handled greatsword. Bang! Sigmund's figure flew backward and smashed heavily into the trunk of a tree on the other side. His body was about the size of a cat. Blood flowed out from its steel-colored scales. Sigmund. That was the only thing Charlotte could call out. She suddenly raised her head. She looked at the afterimage standing in front of her. It was a fully armed automaton, a girl type, fully armed. She wore gray-white medieval armor and held a 1-meter-long sword in her hand. The hilt was more than a meter long, and the blade was more than a meter long. The greatsword was even taller than its owner. On the other hand, there was a shield on her wrist. In addition, there was a steel helmet that covered her entire face. From Charlotte's angle, she could clearly see that the young female automaton had shoulder-length pink hair and a slender body. Coupled with that set of armor and weapons, she was simply a Valkyrie. Felix. He walked over from behind the girl-shaped automaton and revealed a smiling face. This is my automaton. It's also the trump card I used to attack the puppeteers in the academy. I ate the magic circuit of their automaton and took their magic for myself. It's the trump card I used to ascend to the throne of the Demon King. Taking other automatons' magic for himself? Charlotte's first reaction when she heard this again was disbelief. There was no way an individual could have two types of magic in their body. In other words, an automaton couldn't have two types of magic circuit in its body. This was the most basic theory of clever magic, the magic activity disharmony principle. And now, Felix's automaton had eaten more than one automaton. Felix himself said that he attacked others to prepare more magic. Could it be that Felix's automaton could overcome the magic activity disharmony principle? Seal, you're really naive. Felix shrugged and smiled happily. You've already thought of a way to lure me out, but only one person came and confirmed that I'm the magic licker. Yet you didn't raise your guard at all. Aren't you just forcing me? The smile on Felix's face gradually became twisted. Forcing me to silence you. Charlotte's body trembled, and her beautiful face was filled with pain. Can't I come alone? But before she saw Felix burn the automaton with her own eyes, Charlotte was unwilling to believe that Felix, who had been helping her and approaching her, was the magic licker. She didn't raise her guard at all. How could Charlotte raise her guard against the person who had helped her solve a lot of problems and was someone she looked forward to? Perhaps this was what Felix meant by naivety. You've really helped me a lot, Seal. Felix slowly raised his hand and laughed evilly like a devil. After I deal with you, I'll tell others that as the magic licker, you attacked me and I killed you in self-defense. Then, I'll find the magic circuits hidden in your room. I believe no one will doubt it. After all, Felix gathered his magic power and turned it into a light-like wire that flowed into the automaton in front of him. I'm the head of the disciplinary committee. No matter what I say, everyone will believe. After saying that, Felix's automaton nimbly raised its slender arm covered in heavy armor. Magic power surged out and turned into a stream of water above its palm. Then, it condensed into ice and turned into an ice spear. Kill her. Elisa. Under Felix's order, the automaton named Elisa grabbed the ice spear and threw it at Charlotte. Whoosh. The sharp sound of the ice spear piercing through the air sounded again. The tip of the ice spear kept enlarging in Charlotte's eyes. However, Charlotte could no longer see it. She sat on the ground and did nothing. She stared blankly at the ice spear approaching her. There was only one thing in her mind. How should she apologize or thank that person? That person clearly told her that she had to think carefully before acting. She didn't want to put herself in danger in the end. In the end, even though she chose to believe his advice, she didn't want to believe that Felix was a bad person. Even though she had a good plan, she still acted recklessly. In the end, she didn't have time to thank that person. In the end, she didn't have time to apologize to that person either. She was so naive. A tear slowly slid down Charlotte's cheek. She closed her eyes and waited for her death. The ice spear that reflected the moonlight pierced through the air. The sharp sound of it piercing through the air covered the sound of tears dripping down Charlotte's cheeks and onto the ground. The sharp tip of the spear was aimed at Charlotte's heart and suddenly pierced towards it. Charles. Sigmund, who was covered in blood, could only watch helplessly as the ice spear shot toward Charlotte. His eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. Clink. At this moment, the sound of metal colliding came from in front of Charlotte and entered her ears. Charlotte opened her eyes and reflexively raised her head to look in front of her. Then, she saw, under the reflection of the moonlight, the sparkling water droplets flew away. It was the ice spear that had turned back into water. In front of Charlotte, a layer of protective barrier made of crystals blocked the attack. It was this layer of protective barrier that knocked the ice spear away and protected Charlotte. It took Charlotte a few seconds to understand what had happened. She looked at the protective barrier in front of her and burst into tears again. Charlotte had already seen this protective barrier many times in practice. Therefore, Charlotte understood, who in the world came, who in the world protected her. Sigh, as if bringing warmth to Charlotte's ice-cold heart, a sigh was heard. What a troublesome young lady. Chapter 1603. In the eyes of Charlotte, who was paralyzed on the ground, Sigmund, who was lying in front of a tree covered in blood, and Felix, who had a girlish automaton standing in front of him, the space in front of Charlotte began to change subtly. The protective barrier formed by crystals slowly dissipated, but a hazy mist replaced the barrier and filled the space. Amidst the hazy mist, the space seemed to distort like a surface of water with a stone thrown into it. Not long after, several figures appeared in front of everyone's eyes. It was a group of 1 man and 5 women. The man was wearing a white shirt, black trousers, and a black tight leather jacket. His wine-red eyes shone with a scarlet luster in the night, as deep as aged wine, attracting the attention of everyone present. As for the other 5 girls, they were all wearing long tops that were bare at the shoulders, revealing their smooth shoulders. Their lower body was a short red skirt, and their thighs were covered by a pair of white high socks. They wore long boots on their feet, making them look like cold and heroic female knights, dazzling and dazzling. Felix's smiling face finally sank when he saw the group of 1 man and 5 women. Charlotte, on the other hand, seemed to be crying tears of joy. She covered her mouth and kept sobbing. What's wrong? Are you moved to tears? With a hint of mockery, Wuyan's voice drifted into Charlotte's ears with his back facing her. Although I really want to see what that T-Rex looks like when she cries, I can't help but lust when I see girls crying. Unfortunately, I can't stand girls crying. So, if I really cry, I'll kneel down. You, idiot. Charlotte choked back her tears as she sobbed. Who would cry? Who do you think I am? I'm Charlotte from Count Birao's family, that's right. Wu Yan looked up at Felix. Then, the next step is to send this guy who made the little princess of the Birao family cry flying, the guy who brought shame to the Birao family, right? Hearing this, Felix's eyes flashed with emotions. He quickly said. You misunderstood. Mr. Wu Yan, the real magic liquor, Cabalcandy. It's Charlotte, right? Before Felix could finish, Wu Yan interrupted him. He looked at Felix as if he was looking at a rare animal. He chuckled. You're shameless. Invincible. Now, I finally understand the true meaning of this sentence. Hearing this, Felix was stunned. Haven't you thought about it? Wu Yan looked at Felix with a half-smile on his face. Why would Charlotte, who has always been receiving your kindness and even has a good impression of you, suspect you and set a trap for you to jump out? Felix was stunned. His expression changed as if he thought of something. It's because of you? Tell everyone that I'm the one who's related to the Academy's authorities. I'm also the one who told Charlotte that someone is trying to use her. I'm also the one who gave her a warning and made her suspicious of your actions of actively approaching her. Wu Yan mocked Felix in front of him. I did all this to let the little princess, who was deceived by your mask, see your true colors. In other words, from the beginning, I knew you were the magic liquor, Cabalcandy. Looking at Felix's changing expression, Wu Yan spread his hands. So, you still want to continue your performance? Clown, you. Felix's self-esteem seemed to have been hit. His handsome face revealed an ugly and ferocious side. You knew Felix was the magic liquor, Cabalcandy, from the beginning? Charlotte looked at Wu Yan's back in a daze. Then, why didn't you just tell me? Idiot. Wu Yan said angrily. Didn't you always have a good impression of that clown? If I told you directly, you would probably resist me, right? So, that's why you chose to use that method to remind me? Charlotte said uncertainly. Just to make me suspect Felix? If I was too direct, you would resist me. But if I reminded you and let you discover the problem yourself, you would suspect me, right? Wu Yan pursed his lips. Of course, this is a gamble. If you blindly believed that clown, then I wouldn't have been able to do anything. Fortunately, you didn't. A warm current flowed through Charlotte's heart, and she felt even more apologetic. She didn't expect him to think so much for her, so it's all because of you. Felix stared at Wu Yan. After a while, he took a deep breath and returned to his fake smile. But, what can you do? Not only am I the head of the discipline committee, I'm also the eldest son of the Kingsford family. Felix said confidently as he spread his hands. The Kingsford family is related to the British spy agency and is also a family with a very high power in the House of Nobles. Not only that, my father is also an important minister of the British Empire when the previous queen was on the throne. With this background, what do you think you can do to me? Spread the news that I'm the magic liquor, Cabalcandy? Felix sneered. Will anyone believe me? On one side was the new first-year students and the infamous T-Rex. On the other side was the head of the discipline committee, a heartthrob with a good reputation in the academy. In the absence of evidence, which side will others choose to believe? Felix looked at Charlotte, who was slumped on the ground, and his smile widened. Also, there are magic circuits in Charles's room. Plus, there's the special wound caused by the magic sword attack. Even if you spread the news, in the end, the only one who will be known as the magic liquor, Cabalcandy, will be Charles, not me. Charlotte showed a bitter expression while Wu Yan smiled. His smile was one of helplessness. I admit that you're smart, but don't think of others as idiots, Felix frowned. What do you mean by that? Didn't you just say that it's very naive of Charlotte to expose you on her own even though she knows your true identity? Wu Yan's lips curled up. But do you think I'm naive? Wu Yan snapped his fingers. The next moment, Felix was horrified to discover something. In the dark forest, one person after another slowly walked out. There were at least 30 people and they surrounded Felix. That's... Charlotte cried out in shock. Guards? Discipline committee? That's right. It was the Academy's guards and the discipline committee that formed the encirclement. And at the head of the guards and the discipline committee was a woman with bright red hair wearing glasses, Kimberly. Felix. Kingsford. With a cold expression, Kimberly shouted as if she was making a declaration. As the Academy's representative, I represent the Academy, the guards, and the discipline committee to arrest you. Arrest? Felix stepped back involuntarily and looked around. A forced smile appeared on his face, as if he was struggling on the brink of death. What are you talking about? It's useless to play dumb, Kimberly said coldly. You admitted to your crimes with your own mouth. Everyone here heard it with their own ears. There are as many witnesses as you want. You heard it all? Felix's eyes widened. He turned his head and looked at Wu Yan. You again? Like I said, I knew you were magic liquor, Cabalcandy, from the start. Wu Yan snickered with malicious intent. So, you think I'm not prepared? Felix. Kingsford. Kimberly led the guards and the discipline committee and slowly approached Felix. Be a good boy and put on shackles. Go to jail. Jail? A vicious look appeared on Felix's face. Don't even think about it. The automaton, named Elisa, immediately picked up Felix and jumped into the dark forest. Stop. Seeing this scene, the surrounding guards and members of the discipline and conduct committee were in an uproar. You want to escape? Kimberly's eyes flashed with a cold light. Chase after him. With Kimberly's cold yell, the guards and members of the discipline committee all rushed into the forest with their automatons, following in Felix's direction. Charlotte, who was sitting on the ground, panicked at first. Then, she stood up and seemed to want to chase after Felix. However, before she could do anything, Wu Yan pressed her shoulder. Leave it to me. Charlotte looked at Wu Yan and met his wine-red eyes. After hesitating for a while, she nodded. Wu Yan smiled and looked at Natsuki. Natsuki understood and waved her hand. In the next second, the group of 1 man and 5 women all disappeared. Chapter 1604. Damn it. Damn it. Damn it, damn it, damn it. Driven by his automaton, Felix and Elisa leaped from tree to tree with great agility. They shuttled through the forest and rushed toward the entrance of the Walpurgis Royal Mechanic Academy. Now, the fact that Felix was a Kaibal candy had been exposed. Moreover, it had been exposed in front of the guards and the disciplinary committee. Under such circumstances, it didn't matter how famous Felix was in the past, how good his reputation was, or how powerful the faction behind him was, it was not enough to keep him safe. The Walpurgis Royal Mechanic Academy was the highest academy in the magic world, and it was also an academy with autonomy. If the academy convicted Felix, then even if he was a prince of the British royal family, he would not be able to escape the fate of being sent to court, let alone the eldest son of a mere noble. Without a doubt, there was no place for Felix in the academy. What Felix could do right now was to try his best to escape from the Walpurgis Royal School of Mechanics and return to his family, where he could avoid the fate of being hunted under the protection of his family. He would then look for an opportunity to do something when the news was more or less over. This was Felix's only way out now. There was no doubt about it. Even if he could successfully escape from the Walpurgis Royal Mechanic Academy, Felix would have to live in seclusion like a prisoner and a rat for a period of time. It's all that guy's fault. Wu Yan's mocking face flashed through his mind, and Felix clenched his teeth. That guy has been suspecting me since the beginning. Why didn't I notice? If I had, would have been able to get rid of him in advance. With such a regretful sentence, Felix fled toward the entrance of the Walpurgis Royal Mechanic Academy under Elisa's lead. Felix was one of the 13, and his magic power and skills were top-notch. In addition, Felix's automaton also seemed to have very advanced functions. The distance to his destination was shrinking at an extremely fast speed. It didn't take long for the walls of the academy to appear before Felix's eyes. We have to do it now. Felix gathered all the magic in his body. He did not hesitate to use his full strength. I have to escape now. The student's automaton was not allowed to go out of the academy's territory. Otherwise, they would be attacked by the guards. Felix had to take advantage of the fact that only the guard was present. Before the guards and the disciplinary committee members arrived, he rushed out in one breath. Charge out! Felix roared. Elisa! The automaton, named Elisa, was surging with the magic power that Felix delivered to her, and her body suddenly turned into water. He soared into the sky, carried Felix, and flew out of the academy. However, just as the water carrying Felix was about to fly out of the academy, a protective barrier made of crystals abruptly appeared in the space in front of him, blocking the water flow. The water flow was rapid and fast to begin with, and the protective barrier appeared without warning. Before Felix could react, the water flow that flew out of the academy crashed into the protective barrier made of crystals without slowing down. Bang! With a muffled sound, Felix let out a cry of agony. His entire body was carried by the water current, and he crashed heavily into the protective barrier. Just like the water current that had crashed into him, he stopped in front of the protective barrier. At the same time, the space in the sky suddenly distorted, and chains that glowed with a dim light poked out of it, intertwined with each other, and formed an iron chain wall that descended from the sky. With a whistling sound, it resisted the pressure of the atmosphere and smashed heavily into Felix and the water flow. Bang! With another muffled sound, Felix screamed again. Like the water flow around him, he fell to the ground below like trash. Bang! Just as he was about to hit the ground, the water flow suddenly erupted and wrapped around Felix. Then, he fell to the ground and smashed into a cloud of dust. Fortunately, the water flow wrapped around Felix. Otherwise, with his weak body, falling from a height of at least 30 meters would have crippled him even if he didn't die. Damn it! Holding his nose that was bleeding from hitting the protective barrier, Felix stood up from the water flow. Oh! A voice that sounded both surprised and mocking echoed from the other side of Felix. Can you still stand up? Felix raised his head with all his might and looked across with eyes that were about to pop out of their sockets. There, Wu Yan and the 5 girls were imitating Felix's old behavior and clapping their hands hypocritically. That face of yours isn't even swollen after hitting it so hard. Your skin is thicker than I thought, you again. Felix was mad with hatred. How long are you going to oppose me? How long am I going to oppose you? Wu Yan sneered. Of course, when you'll never be able to raise your head again. Go to hell. Felix stretched out his hand and slapped Elisa's back with his palm, and a rich light of magic flashed. Bang! Rich magic power flowed into Elisa's body. Elisa suddenly stomped on the ground, and the ground under her heavy iron boots cracked inch by inch. Whoosh! Elisa turned into an afterimage and shot forward. Splashes erupted from her body and she turned into a running stream that rushed toward Wu Yan. Water? Wu Yan gazed at the rushing stream and placed his hand on Nagisa's shoulder. Nagisa! It's time! Huh! Nagisa didn't expect Wu Yan to choose her and jumped in fright. She only reacted when she sensed the magical power flowing into her body from the hand on her shoulder. Nagisa hurriedly closed her eyes, clasped her hands, and placed them before her chest. She murmured as though she was praying. Please. Agrora, as soon as she finished speaking, a ball of blue light erupted from Nagisa's body. The surrounding space trembled slightly. The blue ball of light expanded and a white mist rose abruptly, causing the temperature to drop by a few degrees. A layer of ice also formed on the ground. Under the effect of the white mist, the front of the water current that was shooting out also slowly froze, and its speed suddenly slowed down. What? Felix was shocked and withdrew all the magical power he was channeling. Bang! The slowly frozen water suddenly exploded, splashing water in all directions, dripping onto the ground drop by drop. Without the support of magical power, Felix's automaton couldn't activate the magic circuit and cast any magic spells. The stream returned to the form of a young lady clad in heavy armor and wielding a long sword. However, because Felix's mana recovery was too fast, and he didn't have time to control Elisa, who had recovered from the state of flowing water, fell to the ground with her back. After a while, she adjusted her body, stood up, and looked forward. The blue ball of light gradually dimmed and an extremely beautiful figure appeared in the air. The owner of the figure had long, light golden hair. However, the light golden hair seemed to be able to change into other colors. It was like a raging flame. Every time it raged, the long, straight hair would change into a different color. It was like a rainbow. It was very beautiful. His eyes were dark blue, and like his hair, they would also flash with other kinds of luster. However, unlike his rainbow-like long and straight hair, his eyes only flashed with a flame-like flame. Her ears were obviously elongated like an elf's. And in front of the figure, there was also a dreamy and exquisite face. This was an extremely beautiful young lady. Moreover, she was a young girl who possessed beauty that surpassed the standards of a human. At that moment, on the extremely beautiful face that could make one lose themselves in a trance and was comparable to that of a fairy, there was an innocent, proud, and confident smile. Such a beautiful young lady left Felix subconsciously stunned. The magical power surging in his body also froze. Chapter 1605. Whoosh, a white, icy cold mist blew up like a gust of wind and spread out, covering the entire place. Ding, 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 light sounds like dewdrops falling into water echoed in the white, icy cold mist. Every light sound was accompanied by an icicle protruding from the ground. Even the ground was covered in a thick layer of ice. Not long after, the area within 100 meters of the ground was completely covered in icicles. The icicles were like a stone forest made of ice, reflecting the moonlight and emitting arcs of light. In this world of ice, Aurora was like an ice queen. Her long, light golden hair and eyes that were fluttering in the wind were flickering like flames, reflecting each other. It was hard to believe that there was such a spectacle in the world. Such a spectacle was the most realistic portrayal of the fourth true ancestor, Aurora, who was known as the Fiery Night Earl. P transformed? Felix stared blankly at Aurora, who had an innocent, proud, and confident smile on his face. An automaton that can transform into a human? Now is not the time for you to sigh. With such a sentence, the corner of Wu Yan's mouth curled up. His hand that was placed on Aurora's shoulder suddenly flashed with a burst of rich, flame-like magic power. Aurora! Oh! The sudden shout gave Aurora a fright, causing the innocent and proud smile on Aurora's face to completely disappear in an instant. It was replaced by a timid expression. This contrast almost made Felix think that the noble Aurora he just saw was an illusion. It also made Wu Yan smile wryly. Stop daydreaming. It's time to go. Don't order me. Aurora protested, but her voice was even softer than a mosquito. She even had an expression as if she was about to cry, as if she was being bullied. Felix immediately wanted to laugh out loud when he saw Aurora's appearance. However, Aurora's next action caused Felix's pupils to shrink to the limit. The white, cold mist in the surroundings suddenly rolled up like a whirlpool. Shortly after, the white, cold mist moved. It wasn't just a whirlpool. Within the whirlpool formed by the white cold mist fluctuated and turned into sharp mist spears that shot out with a whistling sound. They filled Elisa's entire vision. Elisa! Felix immediately mobilized the magic power in his body. He poured all of it into Elisa's body as if it was free. Elisa was enveloped in a mist of magic power. Elisa raised the long sword in her hand and swung it down heavily. Swish! A dense splash of water erupted from the trajectory of the long-handled greatsword, exploding fiercely in the air. Then, with a spin, all of them turned into ice spears and shot out. In the next moment, the ice spear and the mist spear collided violently. Crack! But when the two spears collided, the spears. No! It wasn't the sound of something breaking. Instead, it was the rain of ice spears that was covered by the white, cold mist. The cold mist condensed the ice spears one by one, and in the blink of an eye, they turned into ice pillars thicker than pillars. Boom! With the sudden increase in weight, the ice spears couldn't keep shooting anymore. In a muffled sound, they smashed to the ground and stirred up a cloud of dust. Swish! The moment the dust filled the air, a tiny ice needle streaked across the air, piercing the smoke and opening up a hole the size of an eye socket. Before Felix and Elisa could react, the needle pierced into Elisa's glabella. Bam! The ice needle accurately hit Elisa's glabella, but a large amount of water droplets burst out from her glabella. On the other hand, the ice needle penetrated Elisa's head, which had turned into water droplets, and shot to the back without slowing down, disappearing into the night sky. It wasn't until the ice needle disappeared that the splashing water droplets gathered on Elisa's head, allowing the head covered by the steel helmet to return to her neck. Oh. Looking at this scene, Wu Yan sneered. Do you think you'll be fine after liquefying your body? Agrora seemed to understand the meaning of Wu Yan's words, or perhaps she directly understood Wu Yan's thoughts. The blue radiance around her flickered like a dazzling glare. Shortly after, ice spikes emerged from beneath Elisa's feet and pierced her body. PSSH. The violent ice spikes mercilessly landed on Elisa's body one by one. In an extremely neat tearing sound, at least 20 ice spikes pierced her body from bottom to top. In an instant, crystal clear water droplets scattered in all directions. The wounds on Elisa's body that should have been riddled with holes turned into water droplets one by one. The ice spikes pierced through her body as though they had pierced into water, piercing through her body and skewering her. Elisa looked miserable, but her body had already turned into a liquid state, so these attacks couldn't do any harm to her at all. However, the wounds that were pierced by the ice spikes and turned into water droplets suddenly froze one by one and spread to Elisa's body. Not good. Felix immediately used force domination, instantly controlling Elisa's body and activating the magic circuits inside her body. Bam! In a loud explosion, Elisa's body that was skewered by the ice spikes suddenly exploded into droplets of water droplets that swept through the air, arrived before Felix, and condensed into Elisa. But this time, Elisa's heavy armor was full of cracks and shards were still falling from it. In the face of Agrora's ice, Elisa's water was completely restrained. Ice magic. Felix's handsome face turned gloomy. I really don't know how you got to the position of Meat 13. Wu Yan mocked. You clearly know that my Agrora's magic circuit is related to ice, yet you still use water magic. Isn't this telling others that you want to be beaten? Upon hearing Wu Yan's sarcasm, Felix's face turned angry, but he immediately smiled. Then, how about this? After saying that, a wave of magic power emerged from Elisa's body. However, this wave of mana was completely different from the previous one. In the wave of magic power, Elisa fiercely swung the long sword in her hand. A shackle that was flashing with a silver-white luster suddenly shot out from the sword with the front end connected to an iron ball covered in spikes. Amidst the sound of the chain colliding and the vibration of the atmosphere, it ruthlessly smashed towards Agrora. To be more precise, it should be said that it was smashing towards Wu Yan. Felix directly attacked the puppeteer. Moreover, he even used a second magic trick. In the face of this situation that violated the magic activity disharmony principle, and the spiked iron ball that was shooting towards him amidst the chaotic atmosphere with a sharp whistling sound, Wu Yan pursed his lips. He actually did not transfer any magic power to Agrora. Instead, he withdrew his hand, opened it, and aimed it at the incoming spiked iron ball. In the next instant, the surface of the bramble iron ball was wrapped in a layer of faint light, as if it was pressuring it, causing the bramble iron ball to suddenly stop in midair. Impossible. Felix involuntarily cried out. He actually used telekinesis to control the iron ball? That's right. Relying on the boundless magic power in his body and the skills that he had recently trained, Wu Yan used telekinesis to directly control the spiked iron ball. When an ordinary puppeteer used telekinesis, even a lifeless puppet would find it difficult to control and raise its hand. Only those puppeteers with particularly high magic power, skills, and strength would be able to make a puppet move slightly. Among the students in the academy, only Magnus was able to make marionettes act as they wished and act like a normal person. In a situation where it was so difficult to control a puppet that did not have much weight and only needed to control its joints and not its entire body, to use telekinesis to control an attacking spiked iron ball? What was the difference between that and using a piece of paper to wrap a ball of fire? Chapter 1606. Wrapping a ball of fire with paper. That was an apt description for how difficult it was to control a bramble iron ball with a diameter of 2 meters with telekinesis. However, Wu Yan not only wrapped the ball of fire with paper, he also used the paper to control the entire ball of fire. No matter how the ball of fire struggled, it couldn't break free from the paper, let alone burn it. What? You want to go back? Wu Yan sneered at Felix's incredulous expression. Then I'll return it to you. Then, Wu Yan extended his hand and a ripple of mana appeared around him. Then, the light wrapped around the thorny iron ball suddenly brightened, and the iron ball that had been suspended in the air suddenly turned around. With the clear sound of chains clashing and the sharp sound of breaking through the air, it heavily smashed into Elisa, who was caught off guard. Boom! With a muffled sound, Elisa was knocked back as if she was hit by a car. Even though her feet were nailed to the ground, she was still knocked back. She plowed 2 long trenches in the ground. It wasn't until she was forced back more than 30 meters that she stabilized herself and came to a stop. Gotcha! Under everyone's gaze, Elisa's heavy armor finally couldn't hold on any longer. With a cracking sound, a crack appeared on her armor, and with a bang, her chest was completely shattered. The armor in front of Elisa's chest shattered. Wu Yan raised an eyebrow. As I thought, Felix gritted his teeth angrily. What do you mean? What I mean is, why didn't you turn Elisa into liquid this time? Wu Yan looked at Felix's gloomy face. Didn't you say that your automaton could use gnawed magic circuits? Then why didn't you use the water magic from before? Felix didn't answer. Instead, he stared at Wu Yan. His eyes were filled with uncertainty. You can't use 2 types of magic at the same time, right? Wu Yan slowly smiled in front of Felix's uncertain expression. Not only that, your automaton can't use magic a second time. To put it simply, the magic circuits that were gnawed by your automaton can only be used once. They can only be used once. Also, there's a limit to the number of times it can be used. Wu Yan glanced at Felix. I'm right, aren't I? Overcoming the principle of magical activity disharmony, allowing individuals to use multiple types of magic at the same time, or allowing automatons to carry multiple types of magic circuits. That was until now. The entire magic world hoped that it could be solved. But it was the most basic and difficult problem that had never been solved. If Felix's automaton could really overcome the principle of disharmony of magical activity, then, using multiple magic at the same time, the British royal family had already ordered that this technology be used for their own use. They would throw it into the army's automaton to increase their military strength. In that case, the news that someone had overcome the principle of magical activity disharmony should have spread throughout the world. But the truth was that in England, no one had ever heard of anyone who had overcome the magical disharmony principle, nor had there ever been an automaton that carried more than 2 types of magic circuits. The reason was that Felix's automaton could use multiple types of magic was all because of opportunism. Moreover, the restrictions were huge. The magic circuits were all one-time use. There was also a limit to the number of times it could be used. That was already a huge limitation. One had to know that the price of each magic circuit was quite expensive. If they were used as ammunition for Felix's automaton, the Kingsford family would go bankrupt no matter how rich they were. But it had to be said that if Felix could prepare enough magic circuits, Felix's automaton could indeed unleash a very powerful combat ability. After all, everything had its weakness. With so many magic tricks, Felix could definitely use the right medicine. It was not impossible for him to win in the night gathering. Therefore, in order to become the Devil King, Felix still chose to use Elisa. Therefore, in order to win in the night gathering, Felix could only transform into a Cabalcandi and prepare enough ammunition for his automaton. Ask your automaton to collect as many magic circuits as you can before the night party, and find a scapegoat when the night party is about to begin. Then, you'll be able to perform all kinds of magic tricks in the night party openly. Wu Yan looked at Felix with a cold expression in his eyes. I have to say that your wishful thinking is not bad. Unfortunately, you didn't expect Charlotte to dig a hole for you to jump into, so you jumped into it without thinking. How stupid. Felix couldn't say anything. It was only after a while that he shook his head. You're wrong. What I didn't expect was that someone like you would appear in the academy out of nowhere. Otherwise, my plan would have succeeded long ago. You're the one who wiped out my hope, and you're the one who made it impossible for me to sit on the throne of the Devil King. Coldness appeared in Felix's eyes. So, before I escape, I have to at least kill you first. Kill me? Wu Yan grinned, he grinned from ear to ear. I really admire you for being able to say something like that. As soon as he finished speaking, a raging wave of magic power surged out of Wu Yan's body with a boom. It turned into a storm and rushed in all directions. Didn't you notice? In the storm of magic power, Wu Yan's voice rang out as Felix looked on in shock. I have 5 automatons, and I've only used one since the beginning. Besides, the storm of magic power rubbed against each other and burst into fierce sparks. Shortly after, they turned into air currents and flowed into Agrora's body. Even if there's only one, this one hasn't used its full strength yet. The voice slowly traveled into Felix's ears, causing the expression on Felix's face to completely collapse. Agurola opened his eyes. His dark blue eyes flashed with a flame-like radiance, and the dark blue radiance on his body abruptly surged. Boom! Amidst such a muffled sound, the white mist that contained icy temperatures pervading around Agurola exploded. Like a shockwave, it frantically spread out. Wherever it passed, the ground would be frozen into ice, while ice crystals would fall from the air. Then, the white mist hit Elisa like a shockwave. Kacha! Kacha kacha kacha! Before Elisa could react, her body gradually froze into ice amidst a series of cracking sounds. Not long after, Elisa was frozen in an icicle like a lifelike specimen nailed to the wall. Looking at Elisa frozen in the icicle, Agrora clasped her hands and placed them in front of her chest like a pitiful saintess. Then, she pointed her finger. An icicle condensed in front of Agrora at an extremely slow speed. With a sharp piercing sound, it shot out like an arrow. No, amid Felix's desperate roar, the icicle flashed through the air and accurately landed on the icicle that froze Elisa. Boom! With a loud crash, the icicle that froze Elisa shattered like a wall smashed by a hammer under the icicle's barrage. The rare automaton, which Felix had been proud of and intended to use to win in the night meeting, had gnawed on a lot of magic circuits and could perform all kinds of magic, disappeared from this world just like that. Along with it, Felix's hope disappeared as well. Without the automaton, with Felix's strength, it was impossible for him to escape from the Walpurgis Academy. Similarly, he couldn't escape the fate of being sent to prison. You're tuning into the Carefree Valley YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.